Defense made a motion for a mistrial. Prosecutor was up to some fuckery. Potentially damaging evidence, no basis for it. The judge specifically said, do not ask that question. Do not use that as evidence. She walked right down the path and asked the question. It may be over on Tuesday morning. Batman Bruce Wayne bitch snitch. Gerald Brooks, your constitution does not apply to me because I'm a sovereign citizen, a traveler on the land, I'm the Moorish Empire or whatever, bitch snitch. Because they're so fucking absurd. If you want to be a sovereign citizen, just do yourself a favor first. Go to YouTube here and then just get every sovereign citizen that's ever been recorded. Find me one that won. God dang, you're right. Don't go down this. It's not the path. Don't have time for stupidity. Some clever dick on the internet didn't find the great loophole in all of the world's law. Bitch snitch. God dang, you're right. God dang, you're right. Traveler on the land. Moorish Empire, traveler on the land, bitch snitch, Moorish Empire, God dang, you're right, traveler on the land, bitch snitch. Late evening U.S. people.
What do you got?
I think I can prove to a judge that both of these men had the mens rea.
What the hell is a mens rea?
It's a legal term the lawyers use. It just means the intention to commit a crime.
Okay, come on, let's go.
Mens rea?
Put the cuffs on him.
How could we have gotten mens rea? We take blood? Can you do it without taking blood? We both use condoms. How is this possible? I want to see a doctor. Can I have an independent blood test?
Money!
I feel sick.
What are you doing?
Mens rea! Oh! Oh! My God!
Hey, did you miss me? Hey there, peeps. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whoever you are, wherever you are, whoever you're with and whatever you're doing. I'm just glad you're doing it here with me, your number one lawfluencer, Legal Vices. That's me. Thank you for joining me to be lawfluenced today on YouTube. We're back, biatch. You're going to be lawfluenced today as I provide you with a healthy dose of lawfluential commentary, insight, education, entertainment, humor, and even a little bit of parody as we discuss our topics of legal significance. I'm back. I'm back. I don't know what I did to not be here for a week, but I'm back. Nobody told me why I'm not here for a week. They said things that were demonstrably false. Then they said other things. Then they contradicted themselves. And now I'm being ghosted with radio silence. But I'm back. We will probably never get to the bottom of it. So I don't know what I did. And I don't know how to avoid doing it again. But let's see what happens, shall we? All righty then. This is the final installation, the final installment, the final chapter of the Donald Hartung trial. We're going to end it all here today, and then we're going to start on something new on our next Throwback Thursday. It's good to see my old mug here on this YouTubey thing, ain't it? I'm still streaming on Rumble for like the one person that's there watching. Hey, how's it going, Hammer 427? Come and join the party over on YouTube. It's okay. We don't bite. Actually, I guess there's 14 people there on Rumble. But we are here on YouTube, all 106 of us so far. All right, here's the deal. Let's get all this background stuff, the housekeeping stuff out of the way real quick, then dive headfirst into the final chapter of Donald Hartung. Let's find out what became of him, shall we? Well, as you know, I've been gone for a week. I'm back. That's all I can tell you. I honestly don't know why I was gone in the first place. But I'm here. We are back in fine form, and those super chats work, people. Just saying. Not soliciting them. Yeah, but I'm just letting you know it's there. And of course the things that we can't talk about are also here. I think my mouse has just defecated on the mattress. It does quirky things. It's doing quirky things. But also for those of you on Rumble and those of you down here, we do have our little scroll bar there. Just, pick and choose. But tomorrow we will be doing we'll be doing some uncomfortable stuff tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a rough YouTube day, but it's things that need to be talked about. We're going to be looking at Sandra Birchmore tomorrow. Then Friday evening U.S. time will be F It Friday. F It Friday with our great panel of guests we've got lined up. We'll talk more about that at the end of the show, but you're not going to want to miss that, and you're going to want to bring your piles of cash to throw at my feet for F It Friday for the newly revamped F It Friday fickle Ferris wheel of fate and fortune. Every $100 gets a spin of the wheel, and the reward, the punishment, the neutral thing, the weirdness, whatever comes up is what the next thing that happens is. So don't want to miss that. Bring that. That'll be fun. I hope everybody will enjoy it. And Tammy Fayette, yes, you did. You did, in fact, send me a Venmo the other day on a weekend when I wasn't streaming. So I couldn't give you a shout out, and I hadn't seen you since then. But I do have it locked and loaded so that I can tell people all about it. Right. Let's see. It's warming up. Wait, where did the history go? There it is. Bail money. Hope you're doing well. Thank you very much, Tammy, for the $5 you sent over the weekend. Appreciate that. That was very, very nice of you. And Ricky, I see what you did there. Ricky DeLaw, member for 21 months of the Clean and Sober crew. We guess we should probably watch it over here so we can do things. Where's the commentary? There we go. Watching from a small town, not in Minnesota. And Adara the Wholesome, good to see you here. YouTube is the most wonderful people because they let me back. They'd be even better if they would relieve me of this mystery strike that I know nothing about, but I cast pew pew and prepare to keep God. You're just trying to get me in trouble here. I ain't gonna happen. No. Tammy Fayette, member for 10 months. Hi, Jeff. Hi, Chad. Oh, hi, Tammy Fayette. And again, thank you very much. All right, that brings us up to date. And again, if the super chats roll in, if the other things that are scrolling across the bottom of the screen roll in, we will take note of it at the appropriate time, and we will talk. This is our relaxation. This is our relaxing mode. We're going to ease back into this little streamy thing here. Going to have kind of a chill day here with the final chapter of Donald Hartung's trial. And that's really about all we've got. We've got our like and subscribe poll is back, for what it's worth. I just don't know if this had them upset last week. I don't know what had them upset last week, but it was immediately after this stream that they nuked me. So we're just being a little bit careful here for the next little bit. Our like and subscribe poll today is quite simple. And again, for those of you that have forgotten in the past week, it's just a little poll we do to remind you to hit that like and subscribe button. That's pretty much all it does. So the like and subscribe poll today is like, subscribe, vote, or D, all of the above. Just do it. Just do all the above. Oh dear. Just do it all. We are so back. It says JKD Butt, member for 17 months. Thank you so much. And ooh-wee, tease tea. That's a good thing this didn't happen on an Effort Friday, because we'd be spinning that wheel of fate and something would be happening. But some things are happening as a result of this. Welcome back, says Tease T. It is great to be back, and it's been a while since I've done this. Woo-hoo! Woo doggy! We are back in style. I was a little too enthusiastic with that woo doggy there. And that's the first thing that happens is we get a foghorn. When something like that happens, we get our big old foghorn, and yeah, my mouse is definitely tweaking up. So we'll see how this works. we'll see what happens here. It is time for a new mouse. That is for sure. Oh, that's an interesting thing that my mouse did. Excuse me while I fumble around like an idiot with whatever is wrong with Mr. Mouse. It seems to have a short in the wire. It's doing unexpected things. All right, give me a quick second. Why does it do that? It should not be doing that. All right, but we got done what we needed to get done. And let's see, we're just repositioning things. And for the first time in a long time, it is that time of day right out of the gate that we like to call
Release the hose.
There we go. It is Yoda Cam to begin with. Oh, Strawberry is standing right to the left of the camera. There's some strawberry teeth. What? Hey, my Strawbs, where's your teeth? There you go. There's a strawberry chin. All right, that Tease T has kicked us off, and also as that is a Hyundai, that triggers the just a congratulatory thank you shot. We haven't done this in a while. Thank you very much, Tease T. That is good. Thank you. Oh God, that's great. You make me feel warm and special. But now, don't go spending all your Effort Friday money today, because Effort Friday is one day away. All right, people. Thank you again for all the love, all the love from you. I feel special. Island with $2. Isn't tomorrow Friday here? Are you messing with me? It is. Tomorrow is Friday. Why? No, Friday morning, we are doing the other stuff. Tomorrow morning, we're doing the Sandra Birchmore thing. And Friday evening, we're doing the Effort Friday. It's a double Law Rack Stream Friday. So stand by for that. And Adara the Wholesome again with $2 more. Help, my coffee cup is leaking, and now I'm chugging it in my car. Well, drive safely and don't get boiling coffee all over you. And T for 2. We got T's T and T for 2. T for 2. Member for 4 months. I missed you. Glad you're back from your imposed vacation. Thank you very, very much. It is wonderful to be back. Thank you for joining me. And I guess that's really all we got to take care of today. Everything else seems to have sorted itself out. And T for 2 towards the mouse fund. Thank you very much. I think it's just it seems to be isolated to the left click button. So I might have to switch buttons until I can get a new mouse. But thankfully, this is Korea, and they can have a new mouse delivered to my doorstep by the time I wake up in the morning. It's just if I remember to do it at the end of the stream. All right, we have done 17 minutes of absolute useless stuff, and all of you that are sending the best wishes and the good wishes and the happy returns and the welcome backs and stuff, right back at you, people. It's good to be here in force. We had a fun little time over on Rumble. I'm still streaming over there just for giggles, but YouTube is the focus because they're the best platform ever. They're so kind that they may even want to just remove a strike. David Nelson, member for 17 months. Watch out for the boomer button on the side. Yeah, we're avoiding boomer button. All right. Well, it's time to get down into the shiz, shall we? Let me get set up here to do our intermission. And all I got to say is thank you for seeing me back. Thank you for welcoming me back. And now let the law fluencing commence, starting right now.
This is a brief intermission.
You're very much appreciated for saying that I'm appreciated. I appreciate that.
This is a brief intermission.
Thank you very, very much. I'm going to have a search and or seizure. More likely the seizure. I appreciate you.
This is a brief intermission.
I appreciate you. All right, we are here to start the final installment, part 14 of the Donald Hartung trial. As many of you or most of you might know, he was accused in 2015 of the murder of his half-brother, his other half-brother, and his mother in what was described as a witchcraft and ritualistic manner. Yet there was literally none of that presented as evidence at any time during the trial. The only thing witchy was they had a Wiccan minister on who said, Wiccans don't practice human sacrifice. That's the extent of the witchcraft and ritualistic murder stuff that was presented during the trial. Well, we've seen a lot of witnesses over the past few weeks. The problem is there wasn't a lot of direct evidence. The prosecutor's doing a good job. We're about 20 minutes into the closing arguments now. The prosecutor's doing a pretty good job of connecting the dots, but there's still these vast oceans, these huge tracts of land that are still unfilled. I personally don't think that they really met their burden of proof, strictly speaking. But when you pile on all the circumstantial evidence, I'm pretty sure he did it. So, this is one of those deals where you go, okay, if I was a juror, what would I do? Maybe they didn't really prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, but what if I know he did it? And you will know as well as I don't know. I'm just glad I wasn't on the jury. But they're going to be telling us what their verdict is here by the end of the show today. That's really all the background you need. We have a strawberry sighting. Licking some toes. Strawberry licking the toes. And on that weird little note, let me zoom out the little pupper dog cam just so we can see them both. It's a rare both dog sighting. We don't get them here together that often. There we go. We've got them all together. All right, people, this is it. I'm serious. We're getting right down to business right now. We'll put where are we going to put ourselves? Which screen are we going to use? Oh, this is interesting. Come on, mouse. I know you're being fritzy, but don't die on me now. I need to see the chat. There we go. There we go. That's the view I wanted. And we are, as I said, we are starting this thing with 22 minutes? Yeah, 22 minutes in. And she's going to talk for about 30 more minutes. Then the defense's closing is going to be a long time. Then she'll do a short rebuttal. Then we will have the verdict. So, boom, let's get on it. Talk.
His case, his fabric case, is found on the kitchen counter next to this hammer. And you know that that hammer tested positive for blood in 4 different places. The head, the shaft,
Oh dear, here we go again.
the handle itself. And then you heard Jennifer Wilkerson, the state's witness, say she stuck a piece of filter paper kind of up in between the shaft and the handle, and it tested positive for blood. It also has Bonnie's DNA,
Not going to make those
John's
jokes.
DNA,
I'm being a good
Richard's
boy.
DNA, and the defendant's DNA. And I'm sure, as the defense pointed out in the state's case,
I am not going to make the easy jokes.
there are also some unknown areas of
I
DNA
bumped up
on
my
that hammer.
microphone a little bit.
But what you also heard from the DNA experts is that typically the person who last handled something or touched it the longest is going to leave the most DNA.
So, who left
these
the most
areas
DNA
where
on
the
your
DNA
shaft
is unknown,
and head?
as you heard from the witness, very small
Of your
amounts
hammer.
of DNA that were unknown.
It's hammer time. Jill M's been a
Think
member for
about this
3
too.
months.
Up
Played
until July 20th,
played the 80 Maritime Monday playlist while you were missing. Wow. All right. I didn't know we had
Bonnie's
80.
husband,
Cool.
Richard and John's dad, also lived in that home.
Okay.
You know that the back corner of the fabric case is Richard's blood. You heard
Okay.
testimony from David Flatt that Richard always
forgot about
had
this.
that case. Other than his keys
Wait,
and his wallet, the only other personal item that Richard typically carried was that black purse. And David Flatt looked at a picture and he identified it for you and said, that is Richard's case. He either
Oh, Lindsay says, so glad you're back. I'm so glad to be back too, Lindsay. Thank you so very, very much. It's so good to see you. You are absolutely awesome. Great to see you today. Thank you for joining me on my day back. Wait, whatever. Okay, so the space bar doesn't pause and stop anymore. Oh, that was great. Thank you, Mouse. All right, I see this is going to be a problem, but mercifully, I know exactly where we are. Ha 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 ha. We are here on prosecution's closing arguments, and we are 23 minutes in. There.
July 21st, 2012. Richard A. Smith also lived in that house. Bonnie's husband, Richard and John's dad, also lived in that home. You know that the back corner of the fabric case is Richard's blood.
We do now.
You heard testimony from David Flatt that Richard always had that case. Other than his keys and his wallet, the only other personal item that Richard typically carried was that black purse. And David Flatt looked at a picture and he identified it for you and said, that is Richard's case. He either had it in his office or he had it in his car. You also heard from Tammy that Richard was OCD in his routine. His daily routine was OCD.
Then how is his house
He's
such
not
a
going
mess?
to leave that case at home on a Tuesday when he knows this defendant is coming over.
His house didn't look particularly OCD-ish. Now his house
David
did.
Flatt told you that Richard kept financial statements, documents, what have you. You have all this in evidence. Nothing in that case has Donald Hartung's name on it, which means his DNA should not be there.
Let me ask you this. Did you touch any of RT's belongings?
RT's belongings.
Like personal belongings, his cell phone, anything like that? Did you touch any of that?
Oh, I forgot how bad. We skipped these interrogation videos because they were so
So
bad.
you said you'd never touched anything of RT's before?
Not Tuesday. RT wasn't there.
Ladies and gentlemen, RT was there. And RT came home before this defendant left.
Interesting.
And Richard had that case at the time he was attacked, and that's why his blood is on it. You heard that this defendant's DNA is on these zipper handles on the case. Think about this. Mr. Griffith said in his opening statement, however long ago that was,
A couple days.
that perhaps the case was on the counter while the defendant was cooking, and he moved the case from wherever it was to someplace else.
That
And that's
could have
how
been.
his DNA got on there.
Sounds reasonable.
Well, maybe the outside. Maybe the outside. But the zipper handles?
Maybe he picked it up by the
And not
zipper
only
handles.
that, but on the inside, this defendant's DNA is on Richard's checkbook. Inside. And it's a match. And the DNA expert said that there was more DNA of this defendant on that checkbook than there was Richard. You also have this defendant's phone records. He makes very few phone calls. Very few phone calls. And you have those 3 on the 30th, and you heard that this time has to be converted by 5 hours. But this defendant calls Bank of America on July 30th, 2015, 3 times. Checking his bank account. Is it low? Bills are due. July 30th. And don't forget, Richard's wallet was never located, and David Flatt said he always had cash. He always had cash. He said hundreds of dollars in his wallet. The wallet's missing. David Flatt said Richard kept his wallet in his back pocket. And don't forget, obviously Richard has been moved. This pooling of blood right here, this area on his back, shows that he was on his back. He had to be moved to this position. And this is the position
Lisa.
where he's found. And the back of the belt is lifted up. And then you know from the DNA witness that this defendant's DNA is on the inside of the belt. And that number is greater than 1.1 billion. Not only that, but you have this defendant's bank records. And on Thursday, July 30th, 2015, this defendant deposited $100 in cash at an ATM at Bank of America. He then deposited $900 in cash at an ATM on August 3rd.
Okay.
You've heard the testimony of the Deerfield Drive neighborhood. One way in, one way out. Klondike Road is the intersecting street. Same street that this defendant lives on, just a few miles away. You saw the front of the house, again, unassuming. Back gate has a lock on it that is unlocked. Who knows about the gate? Who knows about the lock? This defendant.
And the nosy neighbor, probably.
He told Marlon Purifoy that he unlocked it to try and throw the investigators off.
Purifoy.
We've got a picture of the back door.
Purifoy.
Back door is closed.
We must remind you who Mr. Purifoy is. For those of you that don't know or don't recall, Mr. Purifoy was the prison snitch. That's really the only, quote, direct evidence, which isn't even really direct evidence, that connects him to this alleged murder. Apparently, just like we saw in the Zachariah Anderson case, people confess everything to strangers in their cells. Mr. Purifoy, he was told about going through the unlocked gate. He was told about the alleged essay of the defendant's son by one of the deceased, told that he was written out of the will by one of the other people. Exactly, Yoda. It doesn't make sense. It's the Yoda defense. But yeah, the prison snitch, he has all the important details. The stuff that the police didn't have. Conveniently, prison snitch Purifoy provided them with all of the information they need to connect the dots. So, yeah. Kudos to him, I suppose.
Before anyone went in, meaning crime scene, and that becomes important because of the time of death and what the experts testified to, the area temperature, the room temperature. This door is shut. Back door is always used.
Oh, don't do that
When
again.
you go
God
into the
dang it.
back door, you go into
Don't
the
ever
laundry
do that
room.
again. He told you he was a
No
lizard
signs
person.
of forced entry. Now, I suspect through the cross-examination that Mr. Griffith did of some of the witnesses that picking the back lock with a credit card is considered forced entry. And think about this. If some person is going to break into this.
I need a new mouse immediately. I can't remember. This is called jumping on a case. This wasn't really jumping on a case. I mean, jumping on a case is essentially when you go snooping through the deals, you find out the information, and then you snitch on them. This is just making shit up, I think. I don't think it was jumping a case in the purest form of jumping on a case. It wasn't like, yeah, let me see your papers. He goes through the discovery and goes, aha, I'm going to say he did this. I'm going to say he confessed this. I'm going to tell them, or he gets the information legitimately. This was just seemed to be an outright BS story as far as I was concerned from the prison snitch. But yeah, same thing. Basic principles are there. Start. Would you start? There we go.
And beat these people in the head with a hammer and slit their throats and shoot Richard and slit his throat. Are they really going to sit out there with a credit card and try to pick it?
Is your foot delicious? Huh? Is your foot delicious?
No signs of forced entry. This is going to the back door of the residence. There's a thermostat up here. It's hard to read. It says either 87 or 82. Again, off from what their expert was considering in determining the time of death.
Mm-hmm.
When you come in, if you look to the left, the back door is going to be this way. If you walk in and look, this little half bath is back there. Great place for this defendant to be lying in wait for Richard to get home.
Speculation. Pure speculation.
Go into the den.
This is
Again,
closing
here's the
arguments.
thermostat and the time that crime scene went in, which shows 1:49. Got the den area.
Strawberry, stop playing with the tripod.
You've got the area where John is found, always sitting, watching TV, just like this defendant said. Got the area behind him.
Jeepers.
Obviously not covered up like his mother was. And then this picture just gives you a good perspective of where that bullet was found. This is where the bullet was found.
Okay, where was the bullet found?
So think about this. Picture Richard standing up, facing the person taking this picture with his back to that lamp. Think about that. Then you go into the kitchen. I forgot to put a picture of the dog food and dog bowls, but there's water for the dog. There's food for the dog.
That's good.
Who leaves food and water for a dog? A person who loves dogs. Then you go into the family room.
Okay.
This is Von Sill's chair. Staged.
Says you.
There's blood underneath that blanket. There's blood down by the side. Again, no spatter. This isn't the greatest pictures, but if you look at the dining room, look at the ceiling, no blood spatter.
Okay, every time I click the mouse, it double clicks on its own. We need to fix that. Aussie Wombat has gifted 5 Legal Vices memberships. We know what that means. That means we get a bell ring. No. Yes. 5 Legal Vices memberships. Janet Burris got one. Lisa, aka Baltimore Paparazzi, got a membership. Silent PS. Alan, what's up, Alan? D What? What's up, D What? Those are your 5 people. D What? Alan, Silent PS. Lisa, aka Baltimore Paparazzi, and Janet Burris. Give Aussie Wombat a super special thanks for that. That is super awesome. It's like totally awesome. We're back, people. All right. Thank you very, very much for the support. Leaving water for the dogs. Well, that's Hartung. Guilty. Yeah. Guilty of loving animals.
TV off. Why were the TVs on?
Because nobody was watching it?
John and Bonnie are killed in their chairs while watching TV. This defendant knew Richard worked late on Tuesdays. He knows that at some
Abysmal
point
Rapture
Richard is going
High.
to be on his way home.
Yes, that is
from work.
Prosecutor Sarah Palin. Oh, wait a
He
minute.
knew approximately what time
We're
Richard
blocking
gets
the
home.
view.
He knew that he had time. Don't forget, he went there earlier than normal. He knew that he had time before Richard got home. He turns the TVs off so he can hear when Richard comes home. Same reasons that Bonnie is moved. What strange random person is going to come in and move this lady from her chair where she was murdered down a hallway and into a bedroom?
Now, this actually,
For all the same reasons.
stop. This actually is an issue for me because he's tall. What did they say he was, like 6'5"? I think they said he was, and he was a little bit stockier 5 years ago. 5 years before this trial, he was a bit stockier, but his mom was a big woman. She was a big woman. Do you guys remember what it was? I think his mother was like 6'4" and weighed about 3 bills, didn't she? I just remember her being large, 6'4", 6'5", and she weighed about 300. If I could be a bit off on those numbers, but it was something like that. So could he have moved her all by himself down the hall? That was never explored.
Reasons. That's why she was moved. This defendant knew he had to move Bonnie so that it wouldn't alert Richard when he got home.
She was a large lady.
You've got John's room with the mounds of stuff piled on top of Bonnie.
Hungry for a mound.
Rug that was taken from the living room. Now think about this black trash can. Well, actually, why clean up? All the same reasons that the TVs are off and Bonnie is moved. This defendant doesn't want Richard to notice that anything is out of order. So think about that black trash can. This is the wall to the right of the den, outside the kitchen area. Does that not look like where the trash can probably would have been? You throw stuff in there.
No,
it
that's where the big
misses,
cock is
hits
on
the
the
wall, leaves some stains.
The big rooster, the big chicken,
Right?
the bantam.
The trash can is moved, and this little rooster is staged. And the trash can is moved behind the door to the den. That is not where that trash can is going to normally be for these three people. Behind a door to a den. This defendant moved this trash can and then forgot to take the trash with him.
What's APG?
Do you smoke?
Yes, I do.
What kind of cigarettes you smoke?
305.
305s?
Yeah.
What are those in those purple packs?
Yeah, got one right here.
Let me ask you this. What do you do with the cigarettes when you're done with them?
Well, how the hell am I supposed to know APG is the Aberdeen Proving Grounds?
He forgot to
I've got
take
the
trash.
Dugway Proving Grounds out in Utah. That's the only proving
It was
grounds I've
right
ever heard
smack
of.
dab in the middle.
I guess
of the
they're doing
cleanup of
something out
food
there.
And the cleanup of the murders is a cigarette with his DNA.
He smoked in his mother's house.
You also have the other 4 cigarettes that have his DNA.
Okay, he smoked 4 cigarettes in his mother's house while he was cooking them dinner.
When investigator Infinger interviewed Mr. Hartung and asked him,
What about Mr. Coxwell?
questions about his timeline, what he was doing that day, what time he got home.
So I said, I ain't nothing on here. I said, I'm going to get Zena, we're going to head on out. That's the same thing I do every single week. And that's when we left.
What time do you think it was when you left?
6 o'clock late, maybe kind of 30, 25, 30 in the streets, maybe somewhere right there.
What did you do when you left there?
I went home. I had my dog with me.
What did you do when you got home?
Went to the mailbox,
What's in the mailbox? What's in the mailbox?
Sat down, opened up the Coke, turned on the TV.
What did you watch when you turned on the TV?
I don't really. I mean, it was more just on than me watching it.
You have the same routine every Tuesday.
I had the same routine every day, practically. Not just Tuesday.
Everybody has shows that they watch.
Yeah.
Even I do.
Yeah.
What?
Usually I watch 5.5 ETV.
What?
And
Very
What
rude
is
not to
your
put your
favorite-
phone to vibrate in
what
the middle of a
channel do you
murder
usually watch the
interrogation.
most?
Oh, I watch 5-3 ETV the most, but I don't pay that close attention to
When you
the
went in and sat down, what
My favorite shows are all the Westerns.
Good for
what do
you,
usually
Hartung.
watch on Tuesdays?
It just depends on what's on. I flip around till I find something I like.
Usually it's the same thing every Tuesday.
No,
Same shows are always.
I don't really have a
on.
favorite show that I watch on Tuesday.
So you can't.
That's what I
remember
do.
you watch?
I spend like the entire length of a program
Well,
on
no, I can't tell you what I
on
watch.
Netflix
Sure,
trying
I
to
can
figure
tell
out
you-
what to watch on
I can tell
Netflix.
you that I watched them. Well, I mean, if I take a think long enough, I might be able to remember, but. Let's see.
But now I'm neck deep in Wentworth. I'm like 3 seasons into Wentworth. I'm loving that show. For all you Aussies in the audience, I love me some Wentworth.
Well, I mean, I didn't leave right then. I was there for a while. I'd say I probably left maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock. And you asked me a question earlier about what I was watching on TV, and I just turned the TV on. I really wasn't paying attention to it, but it was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Who wants to be a millionaire? How appropriate. This defendant.
Okay, that was a little bit of a dig because he's been accused of wanting to steal anywhere between $500,000 and $900,000 cash from the safe under his mother's floorboard. And they said that he lopped off her little pinky finger, lopped off her social T finger in order to force her to give him the combination to the floor safe. So, yeah. So that's what they're saying. So yeah, oh, how appropriate. He wanted to be a millionaire, and that's what he was watching. But I do, before we jump straight back into all of this, oh, that's great too. Amil, welcome back with the $5 Roonies. Thank you. Thank you for that. It's great to be back. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I'm just glad that you're here with me on the first day back after whatever happened and whenever I was gone. But C-Case is a new member. C-Case is a new member of the Clean and Sober crew. Welcome, C-Case. Good to have you here. I hope you stick around for ages and ages and ages. I can't remember Gifted One Legal Vices membership. Oh, shoot. That was a long time ago. Who got the membership? That was just before Lindsay. It was Mamasaurus Rex got I Can't Remember's Gifted Legal Vices membership. Make sure you give a super special thanks there, Mamasaurus Rex. And I Can't Remember also said, remember for 9 months, you're back. I am. Thank you, everybody. I think that caught us up on all of the super chats and stuff. All right, that did. So thank you very much for all of your support. I love you guys. You make me feel so special today. But no, it's not the end because Tammy Fayette has just gifted one Legal Vices membership to Flux. Flux got a Legal Vices gifted membership. Congratulations, Flux, over there in APG land. Thank you, Tammy Fayette. But I think Donald Hartung wants to say something.
Had days to rehearse his timeline, what time he went there, what time he left, and it's always the same. But when he's asked about something specific, he can't come up with anything because it's not true. And what he did in between the time of the first interview And the time of the second interview
He changed his
is
clothes.
go figure out what comes on at the same time that he's supposed to be home. Who wants to be a millionaire? You heard from Mr. Chittenden. I would call him maybe a nosy neighbor.
Yes.
You heard his testimony.
Yes,
It was so detailed
Yes,
in
it
the
was.
information that he had.
He was.
And he explained why. He's
Yeah.
retired. He sits outside.
And he's got nothing
He takes
better
note
to
of his
do
neighbors.
than spy
He's
on the
bored.
neighbors.
He told you that he saw the defendant come over on Tuesday as usual. Nothing abnormal. But what he did say is he did not see the dog in the car. And he
I
told
see
you
my dog
every
right there.
Tuesday
I
when
see
that
my
defendant
dog
came
right
over,
there.
he would see that boxer sitting in the passenger seat of this defendant's car.
What's in
He
the
did not
boxer?
see the defendant's dog that day.
What's in the boxer?
He also
Aussie
said
Wombat with the
normally on
$3.
Tuesdays
Missed
he would
you too,
see
Aussie
the
Wombat,
defendant's
seriously.
boxer running around in the backyard of the Smiths. There's a chain link fence in between his yard and the defendant's family's yard.
Even though I think I saw you
Never
on Rumble.
saw the dog running in the backyard that day.
Hey, 27
He
people on Rumble. Come on
Was
over here to
not
YouTube.
positive on times,
Play with us.
and he explained to you why. He doesn't wear a watch. He's retired. He gave up watches a long time ago. But what he was absolutely 100% certain is that Richard came home while this defendant was still there.
He gave up watches long ago, even though he testified that the sun set at 7:25 p.m. when it actually set at 7:23 a.m. That nosy neighbor with the weirdly photographic Rain Man memory, he missed the time of sunset by 2 minutes 5 years after the incident occurred. He remembered what time within 2 minutes the sunset 5 years previously.
The defendant kept telling law enforcement that it was between 5:30 and 6 o'clock when he left. Mr. Chittenden said it was twilight, and he explained to you what that meant.
And he gave
The sun is going down.
he gave a
but it is not
scientifically
quite dark.
accurate
And you know,
definition
in the
of
summer
twilight.
months, it stays lighter late.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a document and evidence that's certified that shows sunset on July 28th, 2015 was 7:46 p.m. And again, when Mr. Chittenden saw this defendant leave, after Richard came home, Mr. Chittenden did not see the dog in this defendant's car. Mr. Chittenden told you he did not see anybody since that Tuesday, July 28th, 2015. The cars did not move. Richard's car was parked kind of weird. He described that for you. That car did not move.
Oh, the
since
other defense
Tuesday.
lawyer back there in the
July
maroon sweater, the other prosecutor in the maroon sweater back there, red sweater, whatever, his brick red sweater.
This is State's
The way he's
Exhibit
dressed looks
42,
so much
47.
like one of my friends from college.
The reason this is in is because
Like weirdly.
you can actually see Mr. Chittenden peering around the corner.
Werewolf. Werewolf.
You
There,
also heard
Castle.
the testimony from Mr. Chittenden. This is his house. This is where his front porch is. It's the Smith residence.
I'm back, Julie K.
This is
I'm
his
back.
house for perspective. The
What's up,
Smiths
little
would be to
corgi?
the left. He saw this defendant come to the Smith residence as normal on that Tuesday. And then when the car, gets to a certain part, if he's sitting on the porch, he can't see into the driveway. And then he told you that he saw Richard come home, actually saw Richard's face in his car, saw Richard pull up. And then again, not having an exact time, but he told you everything he did, helped his wife with dinner, changed his shoe, whatever he said. And then after all of that, he saw the defendant leave and head out the same way that he saw Donald and Richard come to the Smith house on that day. These are pictures of the backyard. If you're standing in the Smith backyard, this is Mr. Chittenden's yard. Obviously, you could see if there was a dog back there. This is standing on the Smith back porch. And again, just showing the perspective from Mr. Chittenden's view.
1 p.m. Was it raining that day or anything?
Those shorts are like
As soon as I got
John
there,
Stockton short.
Okay. So you got there around 1. When you got there at 1, did you go in the house at all?
Well, I always.
Did you go in the house first and let them know you were there, or what'd you do?
No, I don't ever do that. I just started playing frisbee with Zena.
Okay. Oh,
And then, I don't do just a few minutes. I throw it for a few times and then I go in.
did you take the dog?
I heard a noise.
In the backyard.
Zena stays outside. Bears in the house.
Who?
Bears.
That white dog?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he can't say that his dog was inside the house, and that's why Mr. Chittenden didn't see it, because his dog is never inside the house.
Oh, yeah.
Think about the testimony that Mr. Purefoy gave you. It is consistent. The state is not trying to suggest that Mr. Purefoy does not come with baggage. Obviously, he's a convicted felon. Obviously,
Yeah.
he got help. Well, he doesn't think it was help, but he got a cap of 30 years for his charge. He still got that maximum of 30 years. But he is hoping that the state will file a motion on his behalf and ask that that 30 years be reduced. He's got baggage. But think about the testimony that he gave you and the things that he could not have known if this defendant didn't tell him.
Or the prosecution could have told him, one of the two.
This defendant told you that the
The police
defendant
could have
said
told him.
that he left his dog home that day because he knew what he was going to do. The name Xena, nowhere in any
Warrior
reports.
princess.
Mr. Purefoy talked to this defendant about Wicca. He acted like he was involved in voodoo. This Wiccan talk was interesting.
This week on Wiccan Talk. Jesus. Yeah, that was one of the things that Purefoy, who happens to be an African American. He went for the voodoo. Oh, he told me we were all scared of him. We were all scared of him because he said he practiced witchcraft, and just so I could get to know him better, I said that I practiced voodoo, and we compared notes. Yeah, that was literally the prison snitch's testimony. Oh, don't you be doing that.
To him. He said they kind of laughed at Mr. Hartung. People were scared of him. They thought he was a witch. So Mr. Purefoy engaged in a conversation about Wicca, said he was into voodoo to get him to talk about this Wiccan stuff. Mr. Purefoy told you that he knew that this defendant's son was molested by John. You heard this defendant's own son testify that in fact happened. He said John exposed himself when they were children. You heard Mr. Purefoy say the defendant was upset because Bonnie didn't believe him. He started hating his mom. He also hated her because she treated him differently, because him and his brothers had a different father. How can Mr. Purefoy know these intimate details about this relationship?
The cops could tell
Donald
him.
Hartung
The
Jr.
prosecutors could tell
wasn't
him.
in jail with Mr. Purefoy. This defendant was. Mr. Purefoy told you that Donald Hartung knew that he was out of the will because his mother told him. That made him mad.
I
She
met him
also
in a swamp
left
down in
the defendant's son out of the
where
will.
it
And
bubbles
again,
all
you
the
know that's
time like a
accurate.
giant
You have the will.
carbonated soda.
Bonnie did not provide
SODA
for this defendant
soda.
or his son. How
I saw
could
the little
Purefoy
runt
know
sitting
that?
there on a log. I asked him his name, and in a raspy voice
That
he
made
said
the defendant mad.
Yoda. Sorry. I'll shut
Mr.
up.
Purefoy said that the defendant's mom told him in 2012. Well, what do you know happened in 2012? That's when Richard Smith, her husband, and John and Richard's father died. He told that to Mr. Purefoy. There's no other way for Mr. Purefoy to know that. The defendant admitted that he killed them. He wanted the money. He knew
Why
the
would
money
he
would
tell
go to the brothers.
some dude?
Because I asked Mr.
prison
Purefoy, well, why didn't the defendant just kill his mom? If he wanted mom's money, why didn't he just kill the mom? Because he knew that he was out of the will and the money would go to the brothers.
Yes, I still have 2 puppies, of course. Yoda is just
He
under
knew
the
they had
desk.
money. And he had been planning this for the past 3 to 4 years, which again is consistent when the father died. Father dies, everything goes to mom. Mr. Purefoy told you that this defendant said that although he had been planning it for this number of years, the Ouija board is what made the defendant do it. His words.
That is so stupid. The Ouija board made him do it.
Mr. Purefoy said that he knew the defendant went earlier that day. Time not exactly right. He's not perfect. His testimony is not perfect. He knew the defendant cooked. He knew the defendant took some cameras down, that they ate. He killed John first. John was watching TV in the den. He was hit in the head. His throat was cut. Mr. Purefoy told you that this defendant tortured his mom to get those combinations. He cut her finger. She said the combinations were in a black purse. Now, of course, Miss Wilson picked apart that he said old purse, black purse. Bottom line, it was a purse.
Red purse, blue purse.
Hartung killed his
Prison
mother
purse.
after John. She was in the front room watching TV. He hit her in the head. I think he said cut. That's my word. I think he said cut her throat. And then he got money out of the safe. I believe he said in the
Oh,
mom's
yeah,
house.
that's right.
And again, law enforcement had no
That's right. The manner of death, he was incorrect. The prison snitch was kind of incorrect on that. But yeah, details.
knowledge of the safe before Purefoy. Mr. Purefoy said he waited for Richard to come home. He, meaning the defendant. That
You like that, did you,
Richard
Janet?
last. That Richard was a big boy. That he weighed 300 pounds. That's why he had to use a gun and shoot Richard. He said this defendant told him that he used a silencer so that the neighbors wouldn't hear. That the gunshot didn't actually kill Richard. That Richard put up a struggle. And that he cut Richard's throat. This defendant told Mr. Purefoy that he knew where the safes were. He knew about the money because he always snooped around the house. Mr. Purefoy told you that this defendant said he put clothes on the body so that they couldn't tell the time of death. How could Marlon Purefoy know that? He is not a medical examiner. He is not a pathologist. He probably doesn't even know what time of death is.
Oh, shut
All
up.
he knows is what this defendant told him.
He probably doesn't know what time of death is. Oh my God.
The defendant put his
That was
bloody clothes in a bag. He already had clothes at the house. He, meaning the defendant. And that he gave everything to a Wiccan priest on 9 Mile Road. And again, that may sound so fantastic to you and a stretch. But again, you heard the testimony of Wainwright, who said, after talking to Marlon Purefoy, he went in search of this Wiccan priest and he found one off of 9 Mile Road.
Oh, maybe it was in the yellow pages under W for Wiccan
I want you to
priest.
think about the injuries to the family members. Because not only are they violent and vicious and brutal and personal, but you know that John and Bonnie were sitting down when they were attacked. Okay. So let's think about Richard. Think about how tall Richard was. 6'5".
They were
Extremely
all
tall.
They were
or at
all
least much
tall.
taller than the average person. The bullet wound to Richard's head went in his ear and out the side of his head in a straight horizontal level. No angle. So how tall does the person have to be that shot Richard? in the ear at a straight level.
How
That
do you?
person has got to be at least as tall.
Good Lord,
If
he
not a little
shot him
taller than
straight on
Richard.
in the ear and it didn't kill him? Damn.
This is the injury to Richard's head.
Yeah,
Went
we
in his
don't need to
ear,
see that one.
went on the inside of his ear, out the back. And then through his head and then out the back side of his head.
And didn't kill him. Damn.
Remember, I asked you to think about this picture. Think about Richard standing up. His back's going to be to this light, facing the person taking this picture. There's a ledge right here.
Strawberries.
Mr. Hartung
and
is
her
standing
snacks.
there as he came out of the half bath.
Richard
Richard went in the den,
You already had
sees John. He's covered up. He doesn't know exactly what's going on, but something is amiss. Here's Hartung from behind him, turns around. This defendant's on this ledge, fires the shot, straight horizontal shot through Richard's head.
Shot to the head and you're to blame, darling. You give love a bad name.
I know this has been a long process for you and for everyone. I thank you so much for your time and your attention.
That's weird. She didn't even ask. She didn't do the usual thing where they say, we've proven beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed these heinous murders, and we know that you, the respected jury, will do the right thing and render a verdict of guilty. All right, people, we got another hour and 28 minutes. We're gonna be here for a long haul tonight. Or do we want to? Now we don't want to split it up. I'm gonna do this as long as we can because hey, it's good to be back. As long as you want me here, I'll be here. Midstream Grift, thank you very much for being here. 224 of you. Last time I looked, it was 190. We've got more. 220 of you are here right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad to see you all here on YouTube after my week forced vacation. We have our like and subscribe poll here set up. Make sure you take the like and subscribe poll, and the best way to do that is to like and subscribe and then vote in the poll. Today's like and subscribe poll is extremely well attended. We have 215 people here and watching now, 202 likes. That's pretty darn good, but we have 227 votes, which means 25 of you have cheated, at least. All right, so the like and subscribe poll today is pretty simple. 14% of you chose A, like. 3% of you chose subscribe, B, and 3% of you also chose C, vote, which leaves 80% of you to choose D, all of the above. That's our exciting, thrilling poll so far. We'll check back in another hour or so and see how it goes. Righty, that's really all we got. It's really all we got to talk about. I think we've cleared the board for chatty things to read. Yes, we have. The mandatory reads we have cleared. Welcome back, Jeff Husan. I miss you. D what? It's darn good to see you here. It's darn good to see you here. I missed the start. Where were you? I was right here. YouTube forced me into a week vacation, an involuntary vacation for some reason. Anyway, the defense is now going to give their 1 hour and 20-minute closing statement, which is about a half hour longer than the prosecution went. So, let's get on with it. I guess we need to do this. Come on. There we go. Do the closed caption. There we go. And start. Hey.
May it please the court, members of the prosecution, members of the jury. Well, here we are at closing arguments. This case, the prosecution of Donald Hartung has been, for you, a 3-week journey. Hopefully not too unpleasant, hopefully fairly informative. For Donald, it's been a 5-year nightmare. Not only has he had his family, his mother, his brother John, and his brother Richard, or RT as he's known, taken from him in the most vicious in vile manner.
They're coming to get
with
you,
unbelievable
Barbara.
brutality. But he has never, ever been able to fully grieve for his family. Because within an hour of investigator Enfinger showing up on the scene after the bodies were discovered, he was accused of being a murderer and has been haunted by that accusation for the last 5 years.
Adara the Wholesome says, best to use science during
Ms.
the verdict.
Jensen
Weigh a duck.
has done a formidable
Exactly.
job in the first part of her closing
We have
statement,
ways.
as she did in her
Thank you very
opening
much.
statement.
Adara the Wholesome.
Or I guess it's closing argument, really, because we're arguing to you what our belief of the facts are. I am going to do my best to stick to the facts that you've heard from the witness stand and the pieces of evidence that have been introduced.
That's good, because the prosecution was they
There's
were
a lot of
theorizing a bit.
fact that Ms. Jensen gave you. There's a lot of fantasy.
Good point.
There's a lot of fantasy in what she said. She wants you to assume things
Check
that
mark.
are not in evidence.
Check
And when
mark for the
judge
defense.
gives you his closing argument, he's going to tell you it's to the evidence that you heard in this case, and to that evidence alone. that
Agra is wearing a
you
pink
are to
jacket
base
today.
your
That's good.
decision. Your verdict is from the evidence, not a flight of fantasy that you may hear from this podium right here. For instance, Ms. Jensen said, well, Donald turned off the TVs. There's no evidence to that. Every one of you has been taking notes through the entire case. And it appeared to me you've been taking copious notes. Review your notes and see if anywhere any witness or anyone else told you that there was any evidence that Donald Hartung turned off the TV or his finger.
Stop. Shh, shh, shh. All right, we have from Island the $5 Uber chat. Straubs is telling us she never gets any affection or treats. Yoda says it too. My dog is also an accomplished liar in this regard. What can you do? Well, you can look at them and see they're not starving. That's one thing you can do. They are laden down with treats. So yeah, they're in no danger of going treatless or starvation. That is one unquestionable truth. And for those of you that happen to be of the Utah persuasion, I've just always felt like from the beginning, this guy would make like a great Mormon general authority. Just the way he talks so slowly and does things. If you know, you know. It's just a Mormon thing. Saddle up, Vicky Sue. Welcome back. Good to see you. Saddle up, Vicky Sue, with the $5. Do you plan to cover the Brian Koberger trial? Yeah, if and when it ever happens. I know that there's been a motion made to change venue. So I told you when it happened, and I'll say it again, it is going to be ages before that gets to trial. And just trust me on that. But yeah, when it actually goes to trial, I'll cover it.
Prints on the television or his fingerprints on
Thank you for the super chat.
the
Saddle up,
clicker
Vicky Sue.
for the TV. There's no evidence of that. So what I'm asking you to do when you go back to
Dogs
the
have
jury
left the
room
building.
to begin your deliberations,
We'll bring the doggos back up when they
I
return.
want you to separate the fact from fiction.
Good statement.
This is not a crime novel, a mystery novel. This is real life. You're a real jury, and you have taken an oath to render a verdict based on the evidence you hear in this courtroom.
Hey,
No one is asking you to give up your common sense, but we're also not suggesting that you should go off on flights of fantasy. Now, Donald was accused by Matt Enfinger, the lead homicide investigator.
Others against
of
drunk
this
driving
case,
Enfinger.
within an hour of Matt Enfinger taking this case as his own, that he decided Donald was the murderer. He looked nowhere else for a murderer. He didn't follow up any other leads. He didn't pursue anything.
That's the standard
He latched
tunnel
on to
vision
Donald,
argument the
and
defense
from
puts
there
on all the
on,
time.
It was Katie bar the door. Every bit of evidence was going to involve
Ooh,
Donald.
Katie bar the
We weren't
door.
gonna
Haven't
follow
heard
up
that
any of this
expression for
other
a while.
DNA.
He's old.
That was it. Donald was the subject, and we're going to make sure
Katie,
the
bar the
evidence
door.
fits who we think did the crime. Ms. Jensen suggested to you in her argument that Donald made up that he watched Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, whatever that show is. Well, let's think about it. Would it be hard for someone who has just learned their family had been brutally murdered, that they became the lead suspect, using your common sense? Are you going to be thinking about what TV show you watched?
Chloe Albert's Revenge. I was
You're not gonna be
suspended
thinking about
1
what
week
TV
because of
show you
something that
watch.
happened on,
You're going to have
on
millions
last
of
week's
thoughts going
Donald
through your
Hartung
brain.
trial. Don't know what it is, but I was.
And to latch in on, let me see now, at 6:30 3 days ago, this is a TV show I watched. I don't think that's reasonable. Later on, he came back, but keep in mind, he had just learned his family had been murdered. See if I can make this work.
Work.
Okay. Now, Ms. Jensen said, who would use a credit card to get into a residence? Well, someone that doesn't want to be apprehended. In this particular case, we know that EMS used a credit card to get in the back door, and there was no damage to the door. Because you've seen pictures of the door, there was no damage to it. You have also heard witnesses say there was no damage to that door. Deputy Singleton was one of the initial deputies on the scene. The first deputy was Deputy Smith, and then Deputy Singleton. He testified that Donald Hartung was visibly upset upon learning that his family was deceased. Why is that important? It's important because during Donald's interview by Investigator Enfinger kept saying, well, you're not acting right. You're not acting sad enough. Your emotions aren't right.
I hate that shit.
I certainly hope that no one I know is ever going to have to go through the experience that Donald Hartung went through in learning that his 3 closest family members had been murdered. But I can't tell you how anyone would react or should react to that.
I really hate that crap.
Do you become catatonic? Do you become hysterical? Do you keep it all inside?
Whatever you do is the wrong answer.
How is someone supposed to react? I don't think there's a textbook written on how you should react when your family is murdered.
Damn straight.
Yeah,
that happens
Donald's
so often.
Reaction didn't suit
Shaibes.
Investigator Enfinger, so he made a big deal out of
that. Wait, that was interesting. I really need to do something about this mouse. Hang tight. But what I was going to say is that is such a common thing for police. That's a common police tactic, and prosecutors do it, and even we do it in our normal lives, in our everyday lives. You know, oh, you didn't mean it because you're not really acting this way. You know, you're not acting the way I think you should act. I hate that. Oh, if you're crying, you're crying because you're guilty. If you're not crying, you're not crying because you're not sad because you're guilty. Yeah, I have to press buttons to make it stop. Make it stop. But yeah, the left mouse button is deteriorating rapidly. But yes, I really hate that you didn't say sorry correctly. You didn't have the appropriate reaction to some horrific. Everybody reacts differently. As you said, you can't write a textbook on how a witness is supposed to act, or how a suspect is supposed to act under certain circumstances, or how a normal person is supposed to act. And the fact that the prosecution and police continue to use that tactic since like probably the dawn of such tactics just disgusts me. I really, really hate that. I really do. Now let's see how close to the original place we got. Should we?
Sheriff's Department within an hour and starts questioning him.
We're good.
And no pressure of any
We'll just start
kind
here.
has been used against me. If you would like to read these again, and then I need you to. Let's do this.
Yeah, and see, like when my brother died, it weirdly took 4 years for me to cry.
No, there's no hesitation in doing
About
that.
a year for me to cry over my mother's death. I process grief weirdly differently than other people, and I know other people do as well. Oh my God, that's the worst. The people that laugh when they're anxious or scared or nervous, they're always guilty. Oh, this is funny to you.
There is, if you see by Mr. Hartung's hand, there is the handcuffs are right there. Voluntarily waived his rights.
Yeah, that's just the laughing when anxious. That's a bad thing. See, my son is like, he just goes deathly quiet. He goes catatonic.
They questioned Mr. Hartung until approximately 4:30 p.m. on that first interview. What the state gave you was an abbreviated interview of Mr. Hartung where they took out the gaps in time where investigator Infinger left the room, then he'd come back. He'd leave Mr. Hartung sometimes up to 10 minutes sitting in that room.
They sweated him. They sweated him.
So the entire interview initially took over 3 hours. Repeatedly, Mr. Hartung told Deputy Infinger, I didn't do it.
Yes.
Mr. Hartung, after waiving his rights to talk with the investigators, also voluntarily agreed to a DNA test, which was the buccal swab being taken.
Buccal swab.
He also was offered a lie detector test, which he agreed to. And if you recall the testimony from Investigator Infinger, when I asked him, well, did you do the lie detector test? He said, well, no, it's not admissible. I said, well, you know, both parties can agree to it. He said, yeah, but we couldn't find a polygraph examiner. This is on Friday at 1:30 at the Sheriff's Department. Now,
they've had 5 years.
There are polygraph examiners at the Pensacola City Police Department. There are polygraph examiners at the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Department, as well as at the Escambia County Sheriff's Department. This was an all hands on deck situation.
Yeah.
3 murdered bodies discovered that day. In addition to the bodies, they called out all of the homicide investigators to investigate this case. Investigator Enfinger told you all the names. So everybody's on scene. They've got 4 crime scene technicians that go out there. They have the coroner's agents that go out there, Dr. Minyard's people. Everybody's out there, and they're saying they can't find a polygraph examiner. I'll suggest to you they didn't want one. I can't testify they didn't want one. That's not evidence. What is evidence is they wouldn't get
like
one.
Violet Beauregard. You're going to have to roll him to the juicing room.
Why wouldn't you? If you think he is a suspect and you are keying in on him and he says, yes, I will give you a lie detector test. I'll be glad to give you a lie detector test. Why wouldn't they do it to take advantage of that? Because certainly if they had given him the test, he passed the test, maybe at that point they'd have looked for somebody else. Maybe they would have shifted their view. But had he passed that test, then potentially that would have blown the theory that he's the one we got. This is a big, high-profile case. Let's wrap it up fast. In addition to offering to do the lie detector test, he also agreed to have his house searched, which was done. I suggest you, although you were told in testimony that he didn't show any emotion, he's rubbing his eyes, got his head tucked down, appears to be crying. I suggest to you that is emotion.
Fair enough. I like the defense's closing.
That is sadness.
This is a good closing. Danielle, what's up? We're back. What's up, Danielle? Good to see you. I'd cry too if I watched some guy slowly put on the rubber gloves. Dr. Jellyfinger's coming for you. Yeah, that the delayed reaction is a real thing for some people. He's just man-spreading, Corn Pope. Damn it, turn off your frickin' phone. That's twice now. Next time I'm going to have to punish you, end finger. Oh, no. No.
All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and rub it on the inside of your cheek, okay?
Buckle swab. Give me that swab. And who knew that a few years later we would all have to go through that, except up our noses. We all got buckle swabbed right up the schnoz holes. I hate having stuff stuck up my nose. That's just the worst. Exactly, Lisa. End finger, cockswell, purifoy.
I'll be right back. You want some more water?
Yeah, I could use a swallow.
All right,
Don't drink from the cup. You'll give them your Oh, never mind. You just gave them the buckle swab. They've got your DNA. Yes, all entering through the back
Mercy
door.
me. Now,
No, shut the front door. Got a mercy me and
why would someone who committed these murders do?
end finger in the back row there. It looks like that painting of Jesus that they found. Where was it, in Italy, that the old lady said she could restore and just made it really, really worse. That's sort of what he looks like back there in the back row. How cute.
I promise you this, I'm going to find out.
This.
I know
If
you
you
will.
did it, I'm going to find out and I'm going to put your ass in jail.
Oh,
I would not harm my family, sir, for nothing in this world.
You take a lie detector test?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Take it right now?
Yeah.
All
oh,
right.
well, that's
I'm
interesting.
going to see if I can find somebody to get me one.
He said, "Yeah, let's do it,
I
bitch.
don't see why not.
Turn that bitch on right now." he
In other
said.
words, I have nothing to hide.
And then they didn't do it. Called their bluff. Good on you, DH. Call their bluff.
He says he'd like to get the hell out of here, but he stays there voluntarily. He's not under arrest at this point. The handcuffs haven't put on him. He can leave at any time, but he stays. He stays to answer the questions that are asked of him by investigator Enfinger. You'll see at this point, it's 4:07 in the afternoon. He's been there since about 1:20.
The cop was shocked. Yeah, the cop went on, shit, he called our bluff. Holy crap, what do we do now?
During the interviews, consistently, if you care to listen to him, you will hear that he loves his mother. He would not harm his brothers, and he says that over 20 times to investigator Enfinger. Oh God, what am I going to do? This can be found on the disc that we or the thumb drive we introduced into evidence as exhibit number 26 for the defense.
Hey, Siobhan, how you doing? All right. How much of this hour and 20 minutes is us watching him sit there? Awkward pause. Guess we can play some more sound effects.
I would not harm my family for nothing in this world. That was repeated by him. He never asked for a lawyer during the first interview that lasted over 3 hours, and repeatedly told him after investigator Enfinger repeatedly said, I know you killed your family. You killed your family. He was brutal to Mr. Hartung, trying to break him down after learning that his family had been murdered. And Mr. Hartung acquiesced to every request.
Look at this. Morag Brown is saying,
Enfinger had for
stop
him.
touching buttons. Now, next message, Morag Brown's like, just fast forward. No, we're not touching
never
buttons.
Said anything. He helped the investigation as best he could. Then, after being taken home, he was awakened at approximately 1 a.m., just a few hours after that first interview. And a second interview was held. And that was with Sergeant Coxwell of the Sheriff's Department.
He
in
got Enfinger and Coxwell.
Again said, I did not kill
That's
my
really
family.
Their names, YouTube. Don't block me. Their names are Enfinger and Coxwell.
I love my family. I would not hurt them. He proudly talked about Richard.
I am Dracula.
And what was what we did was we played a lot of chess. He loved to play chess.
Really? Who was better, you or him?
Well, I was better.
Really?
Yeah. I taught him how to play. And then he went on and he almost won the state championship. He went to, when we were living up in Virginia. Mm-hmm. He almost won the state championship. He came in like, I think, second or third.
Look how proud he is talking about Richard.
Junior high age.
So like 13, 14.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think it was about that age, yeah.
Why didn't you try and win it if you were better?
Well, I mean, I was better teaching him how to play. Once he learned how to play, he was better. Okay, yeah, he was way better than me. I mean, I couldn't beat RT no more.
Really?
He was a great chess player.
What else did he like to do?
Sports wise.
There you go. That's what he did. He willingly went there. He willingly waived his rights, willingly gave his buccal swab, offered to take the lie detector test, spoke of his, and in the beginning of this, if you were to look at it, he speaks of his family in the present tense, not as if they were dead. Had he murdered his family on Tuesday and known they were dead, he, in all likelihood, would have talked of them in the past tense. He talks about his family in the present tense during that interview. He went back. He went the first time for a voluntary interview. He went the second time. Signed his rights waiver immediately. Answered all questions without hesitation because he's telling the truth.
No, he's not saying booger.
In the second interview, when he went back voluntarily, he praised his family, shows emotion, which was cut out of the state's version, and
shame on
his
you,
answers remained the same through both interviews.
The song remains the same.
And the reason they remain the same is he's telling the truth.
Ooh, good noise.
He told investigator Enfinger when he was attacked about the way he showed emotion, I got my way of handling things. I hold it inside.
I'm with you, buddy. Me too. Oof. It's not a good way.
This is at the second interview, 2:30 in the morning on August 1st.
Maybe we need the intermission music.
This is a brief intermission.
You're very much appreciated for saying that I'm appreciated. I appreciate that.
This is a brief intermission.
Thank you very, very much. I'm going to have a search and or seizure. More likely the seizure. I appreciate you.
This is a brief intermission.
I appreciate you. Why do I have to fast forward? Why can't he fast forward through it? But again, I mean, this is actually a good thing to do.
This goes
to show the
crime scene. I'll
jury
get to that in a moment.
how much they just let him sit there by himself. How they were messing with his mind. They're playing mind games with him.
You heard the interview of Mr. Hartung where Sergeant Coxwell and investigator Enfinger
Stop saying that.
talk about him being a Wiccan. And they tell him, we know you killed your family because it was a Wiccan ritual. It was the blue moon. You put the bodies in a sacrificial way. You covered them up. And they're telling Mr. Hartung, this is all ritual killing. The state initially in their opening said, this isn't ritual killing. This is a killing for money. That's why Donald killed his family. He killed them for money. Well, the truth of the matter is, other than the fact he didn't kill his family,
Other than that minor fact.
we had to put on a witness to debunk that.
Yes, the Wiccan
That
minister.
didn't, if the state wasn't relying on this Wiccan killing theory, why did they show it to you? Why did they introduce it? They didn't have to introduce it. They cut out a lot on the video that we're showing you now. But why would they put it in? I suggest to you they put it in to try to offend you, get you upset.
Any prior reference to the state's motivation?
There is no
I don't
basis
think we were supposed to hear that.
to believe that this murder had anything to do with Wicca. We put on Dr. Larson. And keep in mind, the state doesn't have to put any witnesses on. We put on Dr. Larson.
The defense doesn't have to.
Explain to you, and I hope he did a good job of it, of what the Wicca religion is and the fact that that Wiccans do not murder people. The blue moon doesn't have any greater significance than any other full moon. And the fact that the bodies were not put in any ceremonial fashion. There is nothing in the Wicca religion that has to do with sacrifices of animals, sacrifices of people. That is absolutely ridiculous. And I would ask you to totally disregard that line of questioning from Investigator Enfinger and Sergeant Coxwell. Now, the investigation of Donald's residence. When his residence was searched, initially they thought there was blood in the residence, and that was taken to the lab, and you heard Ms. Wilkerson from FDLE testify that there was no blood on any of the items from Donald's house.
Wait, whoa.
There was nothing found in
phone.
Donald's house that would in any way connect him or link him to any crime. It has been suggested to you that Donald murdered his family to get to their money. And Ms. Jensen put on on her PowerPoint a list of the assets that Von Seal-Smith had, Richard had, and John had. And it came up to $800-something thousand. Apparently, the state got this during a search of the house. And one thing you should know,
I need to put that on my soundboard.
Donald Hartung knew about those figures. No evidence whatsoever. On the documents that the state had to establish those figures, there's no evidence that Mr. Hartung's fingerprints or DNA were on any of those pieces of paper that gave those figures. So how could the state suggest to you that he knew what the assets were for each brother and for his mother? No evidence of that whatsoever.
Chopped off his mom's finger. That's how he knew. She spilled the beans, apparently. Hey.
As I suggested to you in my opening statement, there would never be any evidence that Donald saw the will, knew of the will, read the will, or knew of its contents. The only indication you may have that Donald knew of the contents of the will would be based on what Purifoy, the jailhouse informant, testified to. Now, keep in mind, Purifoy has worked the system for a long time. He worked the system to get out of a federal court sentence. He has 6 or 7 convictions, plus 1 for dishonesty. And he cut a great deal for himself by testifying. He was facing a mandatory life sentence that was reduced to 30 years. And that's before he testifies. That's just for talking to the state. He got that huge benefit. Because in Florida, if you have a life sentence, you die in prison. That's it. You're dead. You're in prison. You die there. He cut the deal to get rid of that life sentence and get himself down to 30 years. But he's got a kicker. If he comes to court and testifies well, what's his kicker? The state can ask the court to reduce his sentence even more. So he had every incentive in the world to come up here and spin a tale.
Chaos coordinator. Wait, shut up.
Facts?
Shut up, dude. Not you, chaos coordinator. This dude.
Well,
stop. There we go.
During the course of this trial,
thank you. Chaos Coordinator member for 22 months. Thank you so much for being a member of the Fallen Angels tier for nearly 2 years. Jeff, I've missed you and your doggos. I'm so happy you're back. I am so happy to be back as well. Weekdays are not the same without you. Hello, mods and best chat on YouTube. Oh, thank you very, very much. Thank you, Chaos Coordinator. You rock. Appreciate that. Now let's see if we can do this without screwing things up.
I think you've seen both the state and the defense rifling through numerous documents, files piled all over here. That a lot of that's what's called discovery documents. In Florida, the state has to provide to the defense basically all of their evidence. The defense has an equal obligation to the state. It's called open discovery. Well, my client sitting in jail isn't sitting in a vacuum. We have to communicate with him. We have to share with him what evidence the state has. We have to share with him by letter, by mail, all of these facts. And you heard that in prison cells or jail cells, folks don't have lockers or places they can keep their items secured. How easy is it to rifle through someone's documents when they're out of their cell? They're in court, for instance. You have all the time in the world to rifle through their documents. There's a probate involved in this case. And if you remember, the young lady who now works for the Levin Papantonio law firm was here. She worked for the probate attorney when that floor safe was found.
Yep, we're doing the verdict today, Mark Brown.
They would communicate with Mr. Hartung. She didn't work there for a long time, so she couldn't say what was communicated to him. But
we got a while to
communicated to him. And that floor safe information would have been communicated to him because it potentially is an asset of the estate. So that's how Purefoy would know.
Purifier. I've been trying not to call him that since the beginning.
Now, Mr. Roddenberry came in.
Oh yeah, we had Mr. Roddenberry too. Roddenberry, the state lawyer.
And then I called him back to ask him specifically if RT, Richard, or John had wills, then their money would go to whomever they designated as their beneficiary. It so happened that apparently neither one of them had a will, but there's no evidence that Donald knew that. No evidence whatsoever.
The only thing Mr. Roddenberry said was
no evidence other than that Donald had any inkling of the will. The will is obviously a major piece of evidence and was provided to Donald. When it was provided to the state, it was also provided to Donald. So, where is Donald Hartung's motive? We've ruled out this blue moon nonsense.
Blue moon.
And
I saw you standing
other than
alone.
Purefoy, we've ruled out any way that Donald could have known about the will.
Blue moon.
Investigator Enfinger said that he got the will from family members. Was there any indication that Donald's DNA or fingerprints were on the will? There's none. There's no evidence to that. And as long as we're talking about this, let's talk about that safe in the floor. The picture of the safe in the floor shows that the carpet was cut out. Christine Rollins, the crime scene tech who took all the photographs, said she never got there and never took any pictures of it, didn't know about the safe.
Oh, boy. Thank you very much, Yvonne.
Investor Enfinger didn't know about the safe. RT had a safe in his room. And if you remember, it was propped open or semi-open with all that
Night
cash
Court
in there.
sort of gave a rebirth to Mel Torme's career.
Ms. Jensen
They
showed
called him
you
the Velvet Fog.
some numbers
Voice, ugh.
on a piece of paper that Donald had at his house, apparently. Those numbers didn't match any of those safes. If those numbers had matched those safes, don't you think you'd have heard about it?
Wait, what?
Investigator Enfinger, one of the other.
He had two safe combinations. They said one was for the floor safe and one was for his brother's safe. Are we now saying that those actually weren't the? Oh, that's a good argument. Because again, remember, the prosecution is saying that he chopped off his mother's pinky finger. He tortured his mother to get her to cough up the combinations to the safes. They found two safe combinations written down in Hartung's handwriting. Are we now suggesting that they weren't actually the combinations to the safe? Oh, that's interesting. That's a good statement. This is a good defense lawyer. He's making something out of not a lot. Oh, and as long as we're paused here, all the way from Aussie Town, it's Ike. What's up, Ike, with the Aussie $10. Good to see you back. Got all my work canceled for my shift, so now I can enjoy the stream without interruptions. Still don't know how to feel about this trial. Well, you got about an hour to figure it out. So, because that's about where we are. We got about an hour left. And thank you very much for the support.
Investigators would certainly have said, yes, we found these numbers at Donald's house, and lo and behold, when we spun the combination, they matched. You never heard that testimony because those numbers had nothing to do with those safes.
Oh, my Lord. You don't say.
Now, I suggested to you in my opening statement that you would never hear any testimony that Donald had a temper, that Donald would go into rages, or anything such as that. And you never heard that testimony. The worst testimony you heard was from Donald's estranged son, who said that his dad was the black sheep.
Bob.
If you look at his testimony,
Black
why
Sheep
would
Squadron.
Donald
What a
have been
good
the
show
black
that was.
sheep?
That just popped into my head.
Because when he was married to his son's mother, there were occasions when he went against his mother. And those occasions were when he first married. You heard Donald Jr. say that Von Seal didn't like Donald's wife. And there was a split in the family over that because he sided with his wife. The second time was after John apparently exposed himself to Donald Jr., and Von Seal was very upset by that. My client, Donald, sided with his wife again. He stuck up for his wife against his mother. Now, I don't think that makes a murderer. I think that might make a pretty good husband. But that doesn't make a murderer. And that's why he was the black sheep, because he stuck up for his wife when his mother didn't like her, didn't want him to marry her, didn't want anything to do with her.
How'd that work out?
That is not a basis for murder, just that you stick up for your wife. That were the case, probably thousands of men in this area.
Doc, what's up, brother?
Because men generally stick up for their wives.
Far too many men don't stick up for their wives. They're
Other
mama's
than
boys.
that, there's nothing that Donald Jr. really had to say. And I'll suggest to you that if he could have said that my dad had a bad temper, my dad was an angry man, my dad would be physically abusive, that would have come out. But it didn't come out because there's no proof that Donald in any way is a violent individual. Donald's letter of resignation, apparently that's a big deal. Donald worked for G4S Security as a security guard at Sacred Heart Hospital. His family has just been brutally murdered. He is the suspect, and he resigns from work. Resigned from work before he was fired because he was a suspect. Did he resign from work because the pressures are so great with his family being murdered? There's no way of knowing that. But
That was the wrong button, wasn't it? Well, shit. There we go.
Think that when your family's been brutally murdered, that might be all consuming to you, especially if you've been accused of doing that murder, then you know you're not guilty of it.
Yep, that was the wrong button.
Pretty hard to keep your mind on your job. The deposit slips the state introduced, two of them, I think one was for $100, the other was for about $800. People have savings, people deposit money in their banks. And that happened after the calls to the bank. There's no indication that any of that money was from the murder scene. In fact, if he needed money so badly, why leave $13,000+ in a safe in Richard's room? Nobody would know about it. Why not just take it?
I would have.
No one would have a clue that that money was gone. Here's a real question. Why was Richard's safe left open and that money in there? Was somebody in that safe looking for something other than money? He did work for Homeland Security in the computer division.
Ooh.
We don't know what he did.
Maybe it was a real estate agency that did it.
Wonder, why would they go in there? Why were his keys taken? Why was there foreign DNA in the front pocket of Richard's? All those are unanswered questions. I don't have an answer for them, but they are unanswered questions. Could that have been what led to the murder of these people? I don't know the answer to that. I'm not going to try to tell you the answer to that. But it's something you can certainly consider. Why did DHS fly in two investigators, one from Texas and one from Miami?
Because it was a DHS person was murdered.
Apparently was doing a pretty good job from what you would think. I don't think they did a good job because I don't think they looked at any of the evidence and certainly didn't look at anybody but Donald. But why would they fly them in? Then why would they take all the electronics, not just the DHS electronics, but take all the electronics and send them to the Secret Service in Jacksonville and also up to DHS in DC? We have the department. I understand with the DHS computer. That makes sense to me because it's federal and the federals are different than the rest of us. But why for the state stuff? We have a fairly competent Florida Department of Law Enforcement lab that can get into all this stuff. Why did they take it all? And the one computer, they couldn't get into the Apple devices, which may or may not be unusual because I know there's a lot of controversy with Apple and trying to get in the back door on those. But on the DHS computer,
really well.
They said they couldn't get in, but there was a software glitch. I suggest to you, we really don't know what was in that computer, if there was a software glitch or not. This is DHS, remember. And although they told the Escambia County Sheriff's Office there's nothing in the computers of interest and that this case is not connected to us, there was also no report issued by DHS to the Escambia County.
Oh, he's like, she's interrupting my flow.
Members of the jury, you are to disregard any reference to the existence or non-existence of any supposed DHS report.
Okay. But they heard it already. So.
One must wonder, why was DHS investigators up here for 2 weeks? We know that Richard was a GS-14 team leader. He was
Okay.
on call 24/7.
That's the second highest government service rating.
Was some type of
DS-14.
computer specialist.
He made money. He made bank.
Now, let's go to the crime scene.
Dun, dun,
At the
dun.
crime scene, it was suggested to you that that thermostat showed 89, 86 degrees. Doors propped open. You can see the storm door there is propped open, and the entry door is propped open. The temperature outside was around 100, 105 degrees. It is common sense that that thermostat would jack up with the door being open with that kind of heat. There is a, oops. There was a dog food bowl in the kitchen. You can see it right there. And there's a thermostat in the hallway that reads 76 degrees. Now,
these dreams are made.
Let's go to the dog. The dog was running around the house.
Sail the world and the
testimony
seven seas. Everybody is looking for something.
Dr. Minyard said the dog had not eaten, nibbled on, or in any way attacked.
Nom, 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 nom.
Dr. Arden said the same thing based upon his reviewing the report. If the dog wasn't doing that, I suggest to you, there must have been food in the house for the dog to eat, if you're to believe that there was no one there to feed the dog for 3 days.
I wonder how long it would take to these
bowl that you
dogs
saw
decide to go, yeah,
was full. Water bowl full. There's no indication there was any other food source other than that bowl and that bowl of water. How is it that you have a dog in the house running around for 3 days? It's not going to eat and it's not going to drink. Somebody was there giving the dog food and water. We don't know who. We don't know when it was given to the dog, but it was certainly given to the dog or it wouldn't have been full. I believe that would, when you go back to the jury room, that would be State's Exhibit, I think it's 60. State's Exhibit 60. So look at that. Keeping in mind that Mr. Chittenden said nobody was at that house after Tuesday. Nobody entered or left.
It was Chittenden or whatever his name is.
But
it was Chitlins.
You know that
Chitlins
the dog's not going to not eat or drink for 3 days. Who filled up the dog's bowl? Who filled for food and who filled?
That's
up
actually a pretty goddamn good question.
I don't have an answer to that. I'm not going to fictionalize this and tell you, but somebody did. That's using your common sense. Now, in the interview with Donald on that first, I believe it was the first interview, one of the things investigator Enfinger did was looked at Donald's hands. What's the importance of that? The importance of that is to see if there's any marks on his hands. You heard testimony that RT's hands had defensive wounds on them. There are no marks on Donald's hands. If he had been in a tussle, a fight, or anything else with RT, he would have had wounds on his hands.
Ah, the OJ defense.
There was no DNA from Donald on RT or on John or on Von Seal. One thing that Christine Rollins was called back about was whether or not she changed gloves in gathering evidence? Her answer was, no, I didn't change gloves for every piece of evidence. Mr. Myers asked her, well, did you change them after you touched something bloody? The answer was yes. But as we know from listening to Ms. Wilkerson and from Ms. Zilliger, who we called, you don't always know if there's DNA. The skin cell DNA, you can't see it. Sure,
Perry
you know
Marmot?
if there's
What
blood,
the hell's
that there's
Perry
DNA,
Marmot, Elsie?
but there's something called transference that
Perry
we
Marmot?
all were educated on.
Is that like
And
Harry
in
the
not
Ferret?
changing your gloves,
Perry Marmot.
collecting various pieces of evidence, then there is transference. Is it a lot of transference, a little bit of transference? Nobody knows, but it is there. And that is
Yes.
bad crime scene work. Then
Yes, the
we get to
Eurythmics.
the trash.
The thermostat had the word Lennox on the side of it.
As Mr. Waller had suggested, why not unload the contents of the trash can on the scene with Ms. Eliopoulos, who was also a crime scene tech there? Ms. Eliopoulos was doing video recording. So she could have video recorded each layer of the trash can and video recorded what was being taken out and the order it was being taken out in. Let's see. There's the trash can. Now, one thing that's interesting, in the trash can, there are cameras. And the cameras are up there by the head of that goose.
Poor goose.
Donald's
Rip goose.
DNA nor fingerprints were on the trash cans.
Rip
Okay.
ceramic goose.
This cigarette butt that you've heard about that had blood on it. There's a cigarette butt right up there, if you can see it. Anyway, you can see the cigarette butt at the top of the cup. There it is again. That's a French fry.
I don't know why that's funny, but it is.
Back it up.
There's a French fry.
You'll see on the top of the cup is a French fry right there, right? And then right below the French fry is a cigarette butt. And that's one picture. This is at the crime scene lab that Ms. Rollins testified was not sterile. So being in a sterile environment, they could have done this at the house. But you'll see that cigarette butt up there next to the French fry.
The
Now-
French fry. There's the French fry up here above the cup, above the top of the plastic cup.
The cigarette butt. There it is. People moving stuff around I can't ever find. Okay. So back up. We've got the cigarette butt right there and the French fry right there. Now we've got the French fry here, but the cigarette butt is here. That's how it got bloody, and that's how it ended up in the bloody rags.
Ooh, the Hardy Boys and the mystery of the teleporting
You
cigarette
go
butt.
from here, cigarette butt and the fry, to here with the fry. No cigarette butt because it's fallen down here during the unloading of the trash can. There's the purse.
You're right.
There was a great deal made out of the fact that Donald's DNA was
Next, there a
on
bill into
the latch
homes.
part of his mom's purse, that flap that goes over. There's also in here.
Why
I don't
wouldn't he
have
have
the
just
picture
taken
of
the
it,
trash out?
But there was a brown purse also in the trash. Richard's DNA was on that brown purse. Does that mean that Richard did something wrong because his DNA is on a brown purse? No, Donald could easily have just gone in his mom's purse to get something for her. There's no way of knowing why his DNA would have been on it, but I don't think it's unusual to suggest that a son
Ike with the
might
Aussie $5 says
go in
because
their
the French
mom's
fry
purse
moved,
if they're
I'm now
asked to get
convinced he's
something
not
out.
guilty.
Why would Richard's DNA be on the brown purse? Same reason. There's nothing nefarious about that at all. There it is right there. And I believe the testimony was that on the outside of that flap is where the DNA was. Now let's go to the checkbook.
Good point.
Okay. These are all some of the items that were in this Swiss Army notebook. Kleenex, all these letters, this down here, and the checkbook.
I think we might be at
I asked
punishment shot.
Ms. Wilkerson about any of this. Donald's DNA was not there. Not here, not on any of this. On the front check, I asked, is Donald's DNA in there? No. Where was his DNA? On the outside of the checkbook. That's where it was. No way of knowing when it was there, how long it was there. One of the problems in cases like this, or in many cases, you have people's patterns of behavior. I always put this in this pocket when I'm in trial. Obviously, I didn't have it done today because I couldn't find it. People.
Wow, we're
break
$10 away
habits
from
of behavior.
punishment shot. We
It's
haven't done
normal.
that
We're
in a
not all
long
perfect.
time.
We don't all, although a lot of us try to do things in the same way every time, it doesn't always happen. You make mistakes. You forget things. Could Richard have left his checkbook at home on the dining table and Donald moved it one day and gotten his DNA all over it? Sure, he could have.
Sure, he could have.
The fact that his DNA is on that checkbook doesn't mean that he's a killer. The truth of the matter is, if he had rifled that pouch, his DNA would have been on these other things as well. And the testimony from Ms. Wilkerson, and again, if your notes, your memory is different than mine or the state's, rely on yours because you are the jury. But my memory of it is that Ms. Wilkerson said that Donald Hartung's DNA was not on any pouch in the notebook and was on no item but the checkbook. And had he rifled it, his DNA would have been in the pouch, would have been on one of those other items. That's the purse that Richard's DNA was on that was also in the trash can. Now, Mr. Chittenden said that Zena the dog was not with Mr. Hartung when he pulled up because he couldn't see the dog.
The Mog.
A lot of people will drive around with their dogs, and what the dogs do besides sit up and hang their head out the window. They'll lay down on the seat. If the dog's laying down on the seat, you're not going to see the dog. Again, in cases like this, the slightest deviation, the fact that most of the time the dog's sitting up, this time the dog may have been laying down. Well, that becomes a huge lie. He's got to be lying because Mr. Chittenden didn't see the dog. Well, he might not have seen the dog because the dog was lying down. And as intrusive as Mr. Chittenden may be in staring at his neighbors, he's not perfect. He may not have seen the dog out back. That doesn't mean in 105 degree, 100 degree weather, the dog wasn't laying against the house or under a tree. And as far as his timeline's concerned, I can't tell you that he's lying. I don't think he's lying. I think he could be mistaken. Everyone is not perfect. Everyone is not exact. Now, David Flatt, he was a DHS friend of Richard Thomas. If you all remember his testimony, he's the one that talked about Richard keeping the black case with him at work or in a side pocket. He also went on to say that RT didn't like Donald and would stay late on Tuesdays. Didn't say Donald was violent, didn't say anything like that, just said he didn't like his brother.
Fair enough.
Brotherly disputes, who knows? But not liking somebody is not grounds to be murdered. However, we then go to Tammy Duncan, who is the female DHS worker who texts with Richard all the time, spends a lot of time with him. What she said was that Richard would get mad at Donald because Donald talked during TV shows and during football games.
Yeah, well, that's a reason to get mad at
Richard liked to quiet when he watched TV and quiet when he watched football games, and Donald would talk. Well, that may have been upsetting, but I don't know that that brings you to the level of hating your brother. And you all saw how proud Donald was of RT. Now, Tammy also went on to explain this statement by Mr. Flatt about Richard working late on Tuesday. Keep in mind, he worked at DHS. He was on call 24/7. The only day that Richard could stay late was on Tuesday. And the reason was he did not have to pick John up from work, and Donald went there to cook dinner. He didn't have to cook dinner. That gave him the luxury of working late. She also said, she being Ms. Duncan, that on Wednesdays he would work later than normal, but he would have to leave to cook dinner for his mother. He cooked dinner for them.
What a good man.
But he had a luxury on Tuesday of being able to stay late, get his work done, because he knew he didn't have to pick John up from work and that Donald was cooking dinner for Mama.
No worries. Just come home, get murdered, allegedly.
But you see how things can be twisted to say, well, he doesn't want to be around his brother. No, he was there because that was the only chance he had to work late. And on Wednesday, he stayed a little later because of not having to pick John up, but he still have to leave to go home to cook dinner. You know, you heard, I'll go back to Mr. Purifoy for a minute because I just looked at one of my notes. The only person the state could bring or brought from being in this jail cell to testify against my client was Purifoy, the opportunist. Nobody else came to testify. Of all the people that are in and out of that jail, of all the people in those cells, the state found one person to testify that they brought before you. And the person they brought before you is working an angle. And I suggest to you that he is absolutely unbelievable. Wayne Wright. He came in here and testified that he found a high priest.
He found him all right.
I said, well, did he ride a Harley like Purifoy said? I don't know. They didn't know Donald Hartung. And I'm sure that being a seasoned investigator, Mr. Wright didn't say, we want to know about the $15,000 that Donald Hartung gave. He would have done it much more subtly than that. But these people didn't know Donald Hartung. There was no connection to Donald Hartung, no connection that could have been developed between them and Donald Hartung. I don't have any idea how Purefoy would know about any Wiccan priest on, I believe it was 9 Mile Road, but there was no connection to Donald Hartung. Let's talk about Mark Bailey. Mark Bailey was a co-worker, worked with Donald for about 5.5 years. A couple occasions he asked Donald to go shooting, and Donald said, no, I don't want to go. They would talk about guns occasionally. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of guys do that. He told Mr. Bailey that his mom favored him. He thought he was in good graces with his mom. He told him that RT was gone a lot, and then said, if anything happens to my mama, he didn't say, I'll get all the money. He said, my share, I would like to retire. Didn't say, I'm getting all the money. He said, on my share of it, anticipating that he would be a third.
Okay.
And both Mr. Bailey and Donald complained about their pay, but who doesn't complain about their pay at some point?
Right.
And he said that Donald was complaining about the money that he'd have to spend on getting his car fixed. Well, again, I don't know who doesn't complain if you have to get your car fixed. It seems that prices go up and up and up, and it's just an annoyance. Big deal was made about Donald living on his own. He's lived in that rental house for 15 years. You've seen pictures of the rental house. Donald didn't live in the hoarder's mess that his mama lived in. That might be a real good reason to not want to live there. Also, he moved down here after he was divorced. And there was no room at the house at that time because his dad was alive, and RT and John were already living.
Come on,
there
guy,
with
you're losing us. You were started out really strong. You're kind of losing us here.
3 years before this murder took place, he'd already been there for 12 years. He was happy being there. There was no reason to move. So I don't think you can make anything in that. Plus the fact that it seems normal to me for a 50-plus-year-old man to want to live on his own, not live with his mama. Now, on the police work, the drains were seized, never checked. No log of who goes in and out on the time. After the search, 2 knives were found. Crime scene technicians did not change gloves during evidence collection, except if there was something bloody. We don't have any evidence of if the thermostats were checked or when. And you saw in the one picture, the back door was left propped open.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long that was left propped open. Was it for that photo, or had it been propped open all day?
We'll never know.
On the Swiss Army case, we talked about the contents. On the exterior of it, on one of the tabs or both of the tabs, Donald's DNA was found. Was that transfer DNA, or did he pick it up and move it? You saw, and you can see pictures of that kitchen. If you're cooking in that kitchen, if something's left there, you're going to have to move something or touch something. And in one of the pictures, it's up against the hammer and other items. So Was that transfer DNA or
Yeah.
Donald's DNA on
Transfer
those
DNA
zippers?
sounds
We
like
do
to me.
not know. But we know that his DNA was on the checkbook, but nowhere else in that case. We don't know when the last check was written in that checkbooks, or how long it had Donald's DNA on it, and how long it had been sitting in the case. Now, I'm not going to go over Dr. Larson. I've already touched on him and touched on Mr. Wheeler. But let's talk about Dr. Arden.
Okay.
Dr. Arden's the chairman of the group of board certified pathologists, one of only 500 in the country. He talked about the time of death. And as a forensic pathologist, he said you absolutely need to take the human factors into consideration. No question about that. But he also said that the scientific issues don't lie. On the livor mortis, he said that really wasn't applicable to this, but the rigor mortis is. And if you recall Dr. Minyard's testimony.
What do you guys think? Is he droning? He's droning on too long, isn't he?
Set in.
I mean, he's
12 hours.
He's still got another 12 minutes to go.
Be there, and then 12 hours for it to dissipate.
I think he's gone on way too long.
That's 36
He lost
hours.
me about 10 minutes ago. I stopped giving
time
a shit.
That the
What do you guys think?
Coroner's people got to the crime scene and they checked it out. This was around 5 o'clock.
Stop. Because I think he started out really strong. He started to win me over. He actually started to win me over to the not guilty side of the argument. But all of those strong points he made at the beginning of his closing arguments are just gone for whatever the hell he's been rambling about for the last 10 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes. He's lost all of his momentum. I don't care anymore. I just want him to shut up. So I dozed off briefly. Yeah. Endless 013 says, I'm doing my part. Well, thank you so much for doing your part. See, that's the thing is like 10 minutes ago you sent this and I totally was spacing it out because he was boring the shit out of me. But thank you so much for the support. $10. Sorry to get to it a little bit late, but like I said, I just went into this zone here, just like, But he started out very, very strong, very, very well prepared, very, very put together, logical, emphatic, emotional. Good. It was a good opening, but he's just kind of lost it now, I think. I wouldn't have done this if I were him. I would have shut up after. When would I have shut up? I probably would have shut up after he went through the long litany of things. He wanted this. He wanted the lie detector test. He cooperated. He didn't go anywhere. Does this look like a guilty man to you? I probably would have stopped there, but he hasn't.
The bodies were just very slight rigor mortis. And by 9 o'clock on the 1st of August, when Dr. Minyard started the autopsies, there was no rigor mortis there at all. You can do the math, back up 36 hours from 5 o'clock on the 31st to when the rigor mortis would set in. And it starts to set in right away. Now, when the morgue people did not take the liver temperature of Mrs. Smith, but they did of John and RT. John's was 83.9 degrees and RT's was 82.6 degrees. 15 to 16 degrees below normal. As Dr. Arden testified, this is science. The generally
blinded me with
considered
science
rate of cooling of the body is 1.5 degrees per hour. If you took that figure, you'd be 10 to 11 hours back that the bodies were killed. But he said that figure would be for people in good shape, under perfect conditions. That's not what we have here. So he dropped it down. He took a third off of that figure, putting it down to 1 degree per hour. That puts the bodies being killed 15 to 16 hours earlier. Then he said, well, let's take it down again because the bodies were covered up. He took it down to losing 3/4 of a degree an hour. That is half of what the normal body would lose. And on that figure, at half what the normal body would lose, he backed it up to 20 to 22 hours prior to the temperatures being taken. And he said, we'll go better than that. Let's drop it down to 1/2 degree. That's taking a full degree off, well over 70%. And at that, it figures out to being 32 hours ago. And 32 hours would put it very, very late Tuesday night or in the early morning of Wednesday. None of that science ties in to the time of death that if Donald Hartung murdered his family. It doesn't work however you look at it. We're not telling you, I'm not suggesting to you that this family wasn't brutally murdered. They obviously were. I'm telling you that the science does not support in any way the state's contention that Donald Hartung murdered his family. Throw out everything I've said. Throw everything out and just look at Dr. Arden's testimony. And if you look at the scientific testimony, that science, if you look at that, my client did not kill his family. Who killed his family? I don't know that. That's not what your job is as jurors, or my job is to come in with the smoking gun and say, this is the person that did it. We don't know. Maybe if there were other suspects developed, we would know. And Donald wouldn't have had this 5-year nightmare. But we don't know, but we do know what the science is. And the science is concrete. So you've got anywhere between, at the latest, Tuesday night late, up to 10 to 11 hours, which Dr. Arden said he wouldn't go with. But he could go with the 20 to 22 hours, which again puts it outside of the range of Donald Hartung in any way, shape, form, or manner. Remember, Ms. Jensen said I was going to make a big deal out of the credit card. I'm not making a big deal out of it, but if somebody wanted to burgle that house, get in and murder these people, get whatever they wanted to get out of the house, it obviously wasn't money because $13,000+ was left. There is an easy way to get in the house, a credit card. That's it. Was Donald Hartung's DNA on the back of Richard's belt? There was a trace amount of his DNA on the back of Richard's belt. Could that have gotten there from transferred DNA? Absolutely. It wasn't a full profile. But again, all these little things the state's using to try to build their case against Mr. Hartung, but that all flies in the face of science.
Doctor just hyperventilating at each other.
You are going to go back into that jury room after Ms. Jensen gets a second chance to talk to you and tell you maybe why I'm wrong or why she's right. We're lawyers. We're up here arguing our position or trying to present facts to you. But when you're back there in that jury room, if you believe my client is probably guilty, maybe guilty, possibly guilty, that means you come back with a verdict of not guilty. You are not here as investigators to determine who committed the crime. You're not vigilantes to avenge the murders of these people, but you're here to rationally evaluate the evidence, talk about the evidence, talk about the lack of evidence, talk about a conflict in the evidence to come up with your decision. Now, you're going to have jury instructions read to you by the judge, and part of one of the jury instructions is called reasonable doubt, burden of proof. If after carefully considering, comparing, and weighing all of the evidence, there is not an abiding conviction of guilt, or if having a conviction, it is one which is not stable, but one which wavers and vacillates, then the charge is not proved beyond every reasonable doubt, and you must find the defendant not guilty because the doubt is reasonable. Now, the doubt is not to be speculative, imaginary, or forced. That cannot have you bring back a not guilty verdict. But if it is one that is not
the judge is going to
abiding
say all this later,
or one that is not stable but wavers and vacillates, then it is your duty to return a verdict of not guilty.
He's going to go over all of this later. The judge is.
There's another called weighing the evidence. Has the witness been offered or received any money, preferred treatment, or other benefit in order to get the witness to testify?
Yeah, it's hot here.
That goes to Mr. Purifoy.
Divensmore asks if it's hot here. It is.
Mr. Myers asked my witnesses if they'd been paid and how much. They were all paid to come
But they're
here.
just acting.
They don't work for
the
free.
air conditioner is on and the
They're
fan
paid
is
through
on.
the Judicial Administration Commission.
No, they're just
being dogs.
Florida, the state of Florida is paying those witnesses just like they pay
Oh, we're not going to hear it. Don't worry.
prosecutors, just like they pay Ms. Wilkerson, Investigator Enfinger. Everybody gets paid for their work. And these people are no different. They fly down here and they testify. The court's further going to tell you, you must consider the testimony of some witnesses with more caution than others.
The jury is the judge is going to read the
a
jury
witness who hopes
instructions.
to gain more favorable treatment in his or her own
Why are you
case
doing this?
may have a reason to make a false statement in order to strike a good bargain with the state. That applies to Mr. Purifoy 100%.
Dude, stop scrolling on your iPad and shut up and sit down. You've gone too long. You've lost the jury. Everybody looks bored. Even the judge isn't paying attention.
No.
The judge is reading through the jury instructions.
I'm leaving now, so you can be relieved of that anyway.
Well, good.
But each one of you, when you go back to that jury room, must, at the end of this case, you must individually live with your verdict. That verdict will stay with you forever. And I'm asking you, please do not be bullied, harassed, or forced by another juror to change your vote. I don't care what your vote is. It is your obligation.
You do care what his vote is.
To discuss with each juror the facts of this case, the evidence, lack of evidence, or conflict in the evidence. After you do that, each one of you must stay with what you believe to
Dude,
be
this
true.
is the fifth time you've
Do
said
not
that.
allow
Stop.
another juror to bully you.
This is the fourth time you've said that.
You are sitting on the most serious and solemn cases that we have in the judicial system. And your verdict is incredibly important to the integrity of the system.
You just said you don't care what they do.
And I ask you to consider all of the evidence, and after considering that evidence, to return a verdict of not guilty for each count of the indictment. Thank you.
Whew, all right, we got through that. That was about 25 minutes too long. If you would have kept it to about an hour, that would have been a perfect closing argument. I mean, not perfect in every way. I just mean the perfect length, because he started strong, he built up, he made some great points, and then he just went off into Rambletown. I mean, during that 10, 15 minutes, I checked out temporarily. I was actually scrolling through my various delivery apps. I was going to have some French fries delivered to my house so I could rub it in your faces and eat some French fries. But then it just took too long and it wouldn't have been funny anymore. So I gave up on getting the French fries. But yeah, that was long. So now we get to see what Sarah Palin, the prosecutor, is going to come back for her rebuttal and say, and I don't know how long it's going to go, because not too long, because her rebuttal and the jury instructions are 48 minutes, and I promise you we're not going to watch we're not going to watch the jury instructions. When she finishes her rebuttal, then we'll just go straight to the verdict. Hey Bernice, what's up? All right, that's it. But I am going to go grab some water and stuff here once we start the rebuttal, and I'll be back in just a minute. Check, make sure the dogs have got water, etc. All right, let's go back, start with the rebuttal, and I'll be back in about 1 minute. Speak.
The past 5 years have been a nightmare for this defendant.
Yes.
Jury having view the electronic media.
That the past 5 years have been a nightmare for this defendant.
Come on, mouse. Let's go, mouse.
Ladies and gentlemen, please do not forget who the victims are here, because it is not this defendant. It is Bonnie, Richard, and John. Mr. Griffith said, within an hour, this defendant is being accused by Matt Enfinger. And that is true. That is true. This defendant was the last known person to be with the family at the last known time they were alive. Of course he's going to be questioned. Those murders were personal. No one is going to go through those lengths to murder that family, lie in wait, and cover it up. He was the prime suspect. Matt Enfinger would be negligent if he didn't look at this defendant as a prime suspect. And you heard that always in domestic violence situations with family members are suspects. It's common sense. This defendant wasn't arrested until October, 3 months after the murders. If this was some inappropriate rush to judgment, they would have arrested him that first night of his interview or the second time of his interview. But that's not what they did. This defendant's own expert said that the defendant should have been interviewed right away. And that's what they did. Mr. Gerber said the defendant was upset. That's for you to decide. You heard law enforcement at the scene. Defendant nonchalant. You heard Mr. Chittenden never said, hey, what happened? What's going on with my family? Not a worry in the world. This defendant reacted more in his interview when Matt Enfinger talked about his dog. How would you feel if your dog was killed? That is the most reaction that man gave.
So?
Was he upset about his family? Or was he upset about being caught? What you also know in the interview is that this defendant knew his interview was being recorded. Almost the second he gets in that interview room on the 31st, he looks up at that camera.
Everybody knows you're being recorded.
He knows he's being grilled about not being upset. Never gets the Kleenex from the corner to wipe these tears.
Oh, shut up. I hate this.
Mr. Griffith said no one else is investigated except the defendant. That is not true. 2 federal investigators came in to Pensacola to see if this homicide had anything to do with Richard's job, his computer job. He had been doing that job for over 20 years. And now all of a sudden, out of the blue,
Well, we have an Aussie overlord raid.
Does that make any sense? Of course it doesn't.
Hey, Aussie Raiders, welcome.
You heard from Brandon Garrison at Walmart. John was not in any trouble. He was quiet, stayed to himself. No problems with customers, no problems with co-employees.
Make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe
The
on
mom
your
was
way in
78
here,
years old and
people.
never left the house. Nothing to do with her. No one else in this case had the motive and the opportunity to kill this family. You heard the investigators asked, why are they going to single out your mom and your 2 brothers? Who's going to single out your mom and 2 brothers? Why would somebody go over to that house and just for some random thing kill these people?
Because his brother worked for Homeland Security.
Defense says, yeah, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Could be anybody. No, it couldn't be anybody. It can only be him.
Oh.
The investigator said, well, why would they just sit there? Why would your mom and your brother just sit there? No movement. If it was a stranger, they wouldn't. Maybe the Benadryl. Maybe they were a little sleepy. Or maybe just because they were comfortable with the fact
Oh, yeah, he
that this
supposedly
defendant was in their
Benadrylled
home.
them, too.
The investigators talked to the neighbors. Neighbors said, no one goes over there. No one is ever there, except for that man. Mr. Griffith said, we don't know who turned the TVs off. Sure you do. The killer. Who else is going to come in that house and turn the TVs off? You can draw reasonable inferences and logical conclusions from the evidence. If you left this courthouse right now and the streets were wet and the sidewalks were wet,
Not
and
this.
the trees were dripping water, cars are wet,
Not
there's a
this.
jury outside, you would know beyond a reasonable doubt that it rained.
No, fuck, stop it, stupid mouse. No. That's a logical
You don't
fallacy.
have to see it rain
Stop.
to know that it rained.
All right, there we go. I'm starting to figure out this broken mouse. Now, no, that's a logical fallacy. No, just because the sidewalk's wet, the trees are wet, and the cars are wet, and the road is wet doesn't mean beyond a reasonable doubt it was raining. It would be the opposite. If it was raining, then it would be beyond a reasonable doubt that the sidewalk would be wet, the trees would be wet, the road would be wet, and the cars would be wet. There are other possibilities it could be extremely foggy. It could be humid. A sprinkler truck could have driven by. Somebody could be watering the road, watering the lawn. There are many. No. That's a logical fallacy.
Because you have common sense and because it's called circumstantial evidence. Mr. Griffith talked about the polygraph. Yes, Mr. Hartung agreed to do a polygraph. And the second Matt Enfinger left that room, his foot started shaking. His foot, meaning him, foot started shaking. And then he said, I wish they'd let me the hell out of here. Obviously uncomfortable with the prospect of a polygraph. Just because Mr. Griffith thinks there's people in Escambia or Santa Rosa County that can do a polygraph test, that's not for him to decide. Mr. Griffith said, Mr. Hartung cooperated, gives interviews, gives his DNA, lets him in the house. Of course he did. Of course he did. But he doesn't get extra credit off of the murder of his family members because he cooperated. You're not going to see anything on your verdict form that says, give him a break because he cooperated. Why did he cooperate? Because he had 3 days to get his story together. He had 3 days to rehearse this timeline. He had 3 days to get rid of the gun, the knife, his clothes. He had nothing but time until somebody found his family. Mr. Griffith said, well, how many times in this interview did this defendant say he didn't do it? You think this defendant is going to come in to an interview with law enforcement after the great lengths that he went to plan, execute, kill his family, and then cover it up. And then he's just going to come in and say, you're right, I did it. He's not dumb. And just because this defendant said he didn't do it, ladies and gentlemen, the testimony and the evidence say otherwise. He's not dumb. He may try to act like it in his interview. You heard his son testify. You heard this defendant say in his own statement, he played chess. He taught Richard how to play. Richard was so good, he went on to be a state champion. This defendant is not dumb. Mr. Griffith said, well, he talks in the present tense in his interview. Who cares?
Well, who cares if he's crying or who cares if he reaches for tissues?
Now, if he talked in past tense, the defense would say, well, of course he did. He knew they were dead. It's just like the DNA. Defense says, well, of course his DNA is there. It's his family's home.
Yeah.
But if the DNA wasn't there,
well, but it was.
They have an issue with that.
But it was.
This defendant's DNA is in places where it should not be. They didn't test the stove where he cooked. It's going to be there. The oven where he puts the food. They tested places where his DNA should not be. And that's where it was. I want to get something really clear.
Yeah.
Law enforcement, not the state, questioned this defendant about his religion and whether it had some sort of reason or explanation for the murders of this family. And it was based on a website that law enforcement had found. They did research. They don't know anything about it. They found a website. Their own expert acknowledged that this website existed. They questioned him. They have an obligation and a responsibility to explore any avenue, any possibility for the motive behind this horrendous crime. The will. Mr. Griffith said the state can't prove that the defendant ever saw the will, and that's true. But this defendant does not have to see the will to know about the will. He doesn't have to see it. His mom told him about it. He knew his mom was wealthy. He told his coworker. And Purifoy, again, he's not a lawyer. How is he going to know the details of this will unless this man told him? Mr. Griffith said, Mr. Purifoy wants something. Don't believe anything he says because he wants something. Well, you know what? He does want something. He wants his 30-year sentence reduced. The state's not trying to hide from that. It is what it is. But he certainly has not been promised anything. What about their witnesses? What did their witnesses get for their testimony? $6,000 for a Wiccan priest to lecture you on the Wiccan religion. $6,400 for the police procedures guy who has not testified in Florida since 1977.
So?
And who also said that the crime scene technician should have spread out all of those items from the trash can and gone through it at the scene. That's his testimony. She should have taken all that stuff out and gone through it at the scene. Where? On the floor with the dog urine and feces? On the dining room table that's just chock full of stuff? It absolutely does not make sense. Their other witnesses, what did they get? $12,000 for a pathologist who cannot tell you anything about time of death other than his estimation. $12,000. He could not give you any more information than what Dr. Minard gave you because it is not exact. $25,000 for their DNA expert. And look at all the stuff their witnesses reviewed before they testify. They get offense reports, they get all this information. Marlon Purifoy had nothing. You have no evidence that Marlon Purifoy saw anything. That's what the defense wants you to believe. The defense wants you to believe that this man is kicked back in Hartung's cell, flipping through boxes and boxes of discovery in this case. And you have absolutely no evidence of that. You heard Matt Enfinger testify after Marlon Purifoy. There are things that Marlon Purifoy knew that were absolutely never mentioned in any paperwork and any reports. Mr. Griffith said, well, you know, Mr. Hartung received correspondence from his attorneys in the probate case. Well, you know what the paralegal told you? That was before he was arrested. Mr. Griffith said, we don't know that the defendant knew anything about the family's money. You heard him in his statement admit he knew his mom lived off of retirement. He knew that Richard made a lot of money in his job, told his coworker that his mom was rich. And I certainly do not mean to degrade Mr. Hartung, but this was a 58-year-old man making $10 an hour, living in a small 2-bedroom, low-rent home, driving a 26-year-old car. So I suggest to you that any amount of money that his family had was more than what he was working with. He didn't have enough money to get his air conditioner fixed in his car. So whether it was $800,000 or $100,000, it was more than what this defendant had. Mr. Griffith said, there's no evidence that Donald Hartung was violent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest to you the brutality of the murders of this family says otherwise. Mr. Griffith said the defendant quit his job to handle matters. Well, you know what? He didn't need to. He had lawyers out there, paralegals out there. He was out there. You heard Mr. Chittenden. Saw him out there all the time, taking care of business. If he wanted to keep working, he could have. He didn't want to because he just cashed in his retirement plan. Mr. Griffith said a lot of the state's argument is fantasy. It's fantasy. So let's talk about the defense's fantasy. So now it's DHS, something to do with Richard's job. There's foreign DNA found in Richard's left front pocket. That's true. Our expert told you that. Very minimal amount. And you also heard testimony about transfer DNA. And it's usually in small amounts. It gets smaller and smaller. If you look at the video surveillance of Richard's last day alive, you will see they go in and out of that door. When he's actually leaving, walking out of the building, he's got both hands in both pockets. But what evidence do you have? Evidence do you have that Richard's job had anything to do with his death, or the death of his mother, or the death of his brother? None. Mr. Griffith is trying to distract you away from the real murderer, Donald Hartung. He says, why do these federal investigators come in? Because they're investigating a federal employee's death. It's not It's not unique to Richard. They would do it in any federal employee's death. And what would have happened? If Richard's death was linked to his job whatsoever, this case would have been federal. If the Department of Homeland Security had anything to do with Richard's death, why Richard? Why not Hal McCord, who's the supervisor? Why Richard? Why not David Flatt? Why not Tammy Duncan? They all do the same thing with the same pay level. And not only that, if someone's going to come in and kill him for his job, aren't they going to take his credentials? Electronics? There's no evidence that Richard's death had anything to do with his job. I missed some of what Mr. Griffith was talking about, the dog's food and water. Obviously, the dog was eating and drinking because there's urine and feces on the rug. We also know the dog was running around when law enforcement first went in. We also know the doors were shut to the rooms where the bodies were found. The dog had no access to eat on these family members, as their pathologists suggested. Mr. Griffith talked about the cigarette butt in the trash. Why so much focus on the cigarette butt in the trash? Because it's bad for them. It is beyond a reasonable doubt bad for them. Was the cigarette moved a little bit? Maybe when the trash can was transported? Maybe as Ms. Rollins is taking it out? Maybe. But it's not going to move up. When it's moved around, it's going to move down, which means that cigarette butt was actually maybe a little bit higher in the trash can than where you saw it. And the whole point is this: it shouldn't be there. It is smack dab in the middle of cleanup, of cooking and murder. Mr. Griffith said, well, Richard's DNA is on his mom's purse. Okay. Richard lived with his mom and helped take care of his mom. And you think at some point she didn't need him to get her purse for her? But he didn't empty that purse in that trash on Tuesday when his mother was murdered. Mr. Griffith said, well, Ms. Rollins didn't change gloves every time she touched something. Ladies and gentlemen, that is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Changed gloves every time you touch something? Each crime scene technician would go through how many sets of gloves during the course of processing this case for a week? They're careful. They're trained. They know what DNA is. They know areas not to touch. And if they do touch something with bodily fluid, blood, of course they're going to change their gloves. And she told you that. Tell you what she didn't do. She didn't take this defendant's DNA and rub it on the zippers of Richard's fabric case. She didn't take this defendant's DNA and rub it on the hammer. And you know why she didn't? Because she had absolutely no contact with Donald Hartung during the course of processing the scene. She didn't take his DNA and rub it on the inside of Richard's belt. Mr. Griffith said the only witness the state could bring in was Marlon Purifoy. Well, ladies and gentlemen, he's the only witness that this defendant sent for. Do you remember the testimony? This defendant would tell other people to go get Marlon Purifoy. And Marlon would go talk to him. He said no one else would talk to him. They were scared of him. They thought he was a witch. The Wiccan talk freaked everybody out. And the whole point of the Wiccan priest is that Marlon Purifoy would not have known about this Wiccan priest on 9 Mile Road unless Donald Hartung didn't tell him about it. That's the whole point. Mark Bailey, the coworker, did talk about the defendant's mom's money, the retirement, and all that. But you know what he also said? He also said he spent time talking to this defendant about guns. And this defendant talked about 9mm mostly. Coincidence? But that's the same kind of gun used in this case? I suggest not. Mr. Bailey invited the defendant to go to the range. Defendant never went, never practiced. And he also said in his statement, he being the defendant, he was not quite the shot that he used to be. Also evidenced by the wound to Richard's head. Did no major damage, nothing fatal. Mr. Griffith said, do you even know when the last check was written out of Richard's checkbook? No, we don't have that. Yes, you do. Because inside Richard's car in the front seat was a check written the day before. Again, they're pathologists. Mr. Griffith wants you and the expert to ignore all the human factors and just look at the science. That's not exact. Their expert spent 10 minutes going through the education and training that he had. No question, the man is intelligent. No question, the man is educated. But he got paid $12,000 on behalf of the defense to tell you that it is not impossible that this family died on Tuesday the 29th. He told you that. He can't say it didn't happen on the 28th. He said it's inconsistent with his $12,000 opinion, but it's not impossible. And how many times did he say during his testimony? It's an estimate. His opinion is an estimate.
So is yours.
Their expert also said it was unusual that the dog didn't feed on the bodies. And Mr. Meyer said, well, did you know the doors were shut? Yeah, I think I knew that. But I'm not quite sure. I don't recall. Defense attorney said to you in his closing argument, don't take a look at the human factors. Just take a look at the science. Don't look at all the human factors. But again, the science is not exact. It is not precise. It is an estimate. And his own expert said you should look at the human factors. Medical examiners should look at the human factors. And I'm not.
Yes.
As I was saying.
Well.
State is not going to
whatever it was she
all
won.
the evidence you have that shows beyond a reasonable doubt that these murders were committed on the 28th, because I already went through all that. But their expert did not consider most of it in his testimony. The defense didn't consider most of it. The defense expert did not consider most of it, and the defense doesn't want you to consider any of it. The defense said in their opening statement that the state didn't have GSR, state didn't have this, state didn't have that. Now you've heard the entire case. And this honorable judge is not going to instruct you.
Joe Pottinger says, are we having another poll for the verdict? I got mine ready now.
Or any specific number
we'll get there.
Of exhibits.
I almost switched over to Lally to wake back up. Says Chloe Albert's revenge.
Has met its burden of proof.
That was over 30 minutes ago.
It does not depend upon the number of witnesses it has called or upon the number of exhibits that it has offered, but instead upon the nature and the quality of the evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, all these pieces of evidence did not fall out of the sky and just land on Donald Hartung. The judge is also going to read you an instruction on reasonable doubt, because what the defense wants you to have is a possible doubt or a speculative doubt or a fantasy doubt. And that is not enough to find this defendant not guilty. The judge is going to tell you a reasonable doubt is not a mere possible doubt, a speculative, imaginary, or forced doubt. Such a doubt must not influence you to return a verdict of not guilty if you have an abiding conviction of guilt. Ladies and gentlemen, you have everything you need. You have the facts, you have the evidence, you have your common sense, and you have the law. Apply the law, deliver justice, and find this defendant guilty as charged.
Oh, now she asked for it. Okay. She didn't do that at the beginning. I guess she was
I'm about to
saving it.
read you your final
All right,
instructions.
we are
You
not
need
going to listen to the
break off
judge's
to read the final
instructions. Sorry, people.
I see no hands.
That is
You can
not
pass
going to
these out,
happen.
please.
Hang on.
Each of you are going to have a copy.
Where's my window to make
You'll
it
have them
stop?
back in the deliberation room when you deliberate.
There we go. All right. We are not going to listen to that. All right. While I get the verdict set up, people, what I want you to do is, if you think he is guilty, put a 1 in chat. If you think he's not guilty, put a 2 in chat. 1 for guilty, 2 for not guilty. And we'll see how it goes. 1 for guilty, 2 for not guilty. All right, we'll give you a little bit of time here. A surprising number of 2s. I guess what I should ask is, if you were on the jury, would you find him guilty or not guilty? I guess that'd be the proper way of asking it. That's why I was saying it's probably the proper. Personally, 2, but I think the jury goes 1. So what would you do if you were on the jury? Now, this is what you think, what you should do, what you would do. It looks like most of your 2 people. What about you, Rumble peeps? We've got a few people watching over on Rumble. What do you guys think? 1 for guilty, 2 for not guilty. How would you vote if you were on the jury? It's looking like you're mostly 2s. It looks like it's about 1/3 1s and 2/3 2s. Me, I think there's some doubt. Like I said, evident. See, this is what I was talking about at the beginning. I have this problem where I think he pretty much did it, but I don't think the prosecution proved it beyond a reasonable doubt. Rumble is split 50-50. Huh. Wow. Oh, man. I would probably start out saying not guilty and then allow myself to be bullied into a guilty verdict. That's probably what I did. Because, we probably did it. But dang it, they didn't prove it. But I don't. So I want what I think would be justice, which is him to be found guilty. But then again, the prosecution has to be held to a standard. They have to meet on principle, just my own personal principle. I would have to say I would go not guilty. Even though I know he did it in my heart. I believe he did it. So that would be the better that 100 guilty people go free than an innocent one be convicted. It would have to be that. So yeah, that's how I would have to come down on that. I would probably have to go not guilty. Well, you don't have to be 100% convinced. Just beyond a reasonable doubt. Not beyond all doubt, just a reasonable doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt. So, yeah. What piece of evidence made you think guilty? The circumstantial evidence. He's the last one in the house. No signs of forced entry into the house. The food he made on Tuesday is still in the oven. He may have had the motive for the molestation of his son, being cut out of the will. Like I said, I don't see any direct evidence. I'm not persuaded by the DNA evidence at all. He's frequently in the house. I think it's just the there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. No, it's not speculation. It's circumstantial evidence. And circumstantial evidence is given a certain amount of weight. You know, you don't have to discount one because it's circumstantial and support another because it's direct. You determine how much weight to give each piece of evidence, whether direct or circumstantial. There's actually, when you get right down to it, in cases, very little direct evidence of guilt. Just circumstantial case. But anyway, that's what I would have to. That's what I would. So my final answer is I would just in principle have to go with not guilty, even though I think he did it. I just don't think they proved it, and that's the standard. Has he been proven beyond a reasonable doubt by the state? Has the state met their burden of proof? I think they came close, but there was just too big of a gap, and I don't find the prison snitch. The prison snitch was the one who was supposed to bridge the gap in the evidence, and I found him to be less than not credible. So yeah, that would be my verdict. But let's see what the jury did, because I honest to God have no idea. And somehow I've managed to keep away from it this entire trial. All right, where's the window? Where's my window? Oh, there it is.
All right, members of the jury, it's my understanding you've reached a verdict. Have you reached a verdict?
All right. Yes, we've reached a. Stop it.
Are you the foreperson, ma'am? Are you in your name? All right, Ms. Cassard, if you could hand the verdict form to the deputy, please. All right, the verdict form appears to be in proper form. Please publish the verdict. Yes, sir.
In the Circuit Court in and for Escambia County, Florida, State of Florida Plaintiff versus Donald Wayne Hartung, Defendant, case number 1715 CF 004806A, Division C, Danheiser. Verdict: as to the charge in count 1, Bonsil Smith, we the jury find the defendant, Donald Hartung, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. As to the charge in count 2, John Smith, we the jury find the defendant, Donald Hartung, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. As to the charge in count 3, Richard Smith, we the jury find the defendant, Donald Hartung, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment.
Guilty.
So say we all. Jennifer Cassard, dated 1/29/2020.
All right, straight across the board.
Are there any requests of counsel?
Cough, cough, cough. Straight across the board. All guilties. 3 counts of murder. 3 guilty verdicts. That's what I thought was going to happen. Not what I would have voted, but that's what I thought would happen. And we have a sneak attack from AV to the 7th power. What's up, AV? Good to see you here. Did YouTube stop the shenanigans? No. I just served quietly my, well, not so quietly, but I served my 1-week sentence. The strike is still in place. What the strike is for, don't know. What I did, I don't know. How do I avoid doing it again? I don't know. I just don't know. They wouldn't tell me. Well, they told me, but it was demonstrably false. Then they told me something else. Then they contradicted themselves. So yeah. For example, I can't appeal it because, well, first of all, the notice says YouTube deleted the offending content. Nothing was deleted, but they said we deleted the content. And then I said, but how come I can't appeal it? Well, you can't appeal it because you deleted the content. So on one hand, they say we deleted it, then I can't appeal because I deleted it, when actually nothing has been deleted. I don't know what happened. I honestly don't know what happened. I don't know what the problem was. I don't know why I got the strike. I don't know what I can do to avoid doing it again. I just don't know. So the answer is no, but I'm just back. Thank you for the super chat. AV to the 7th power. Everybody needs to subscribe to AV. AV in the house. Good to see you. It's been a minute. And Ollie 90211, that was kind of a dick move. Don't do that. Why would you do that? We went 14 weeks without knowing the verdict, and then you would do that right as they were announcing the verdict. Dick move. Shame on you. Just thought I would say that. That was a bit of a dick move. No, that's why he said we went 14 weeks without knowing the answer. That's literally what I said before he posted that. But anyway, why would we? Anyway, Duncan Idaho, never mind. Duncan Idaho gifted 1 Legal Vices membership to Gayla Bird. Gayla Bird, you were gifted a Legal Vices membership by Duncan Idaho. I know, but anyway, never. Don't worry about it. No spoilers. Too late now. Trial's over. Woohoo! Anyway, that doesn't matter. You have a life. We do too. We every Thursday. This was our life, and you ruined it. No, everything is cool. All right, let's see here. Let's see what happened after the trial. Donald Hartung, where is he now? Again, this was the conclusion of a 2020 trial. All right, let's see. Where is Donald Hartung Sr. now? This was written. This article was written in. This was like last time we heard. He's still alive. I guess. I don't know. That's what you thought I said. I did. I say things. It's like I said, so we'd getting a thumbs down from me. You won't be the first and you won't be the last. But we're actually glad you're here. Thumbs down views are still views. We love you anyway. Island, why are you leaving us? All right, here's the where are we now? Yes, I do. I joke. No, we love everybody. The Vice Squad chat is the best chat. No, you don't. Yes, we do. We all love you. We all love you. Even those of us, I can't even say it. Even those of us with no lives, we still love you. All right, this is the catch up. Where is he now? Donald stood trial for the triple homicide only in late January 2020, more than 4.5 years after the incident took place. I'm going to move this over here so it looks like I'm looking towards the center of the camera. During those 6 days, game, we don't care about the trial. We just watched it for the last 14 weeks. The jury found Donald guilty of the charges against him and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. All right, so that was his sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. Without the possibility of Ross Perot. Duh. Without the possibility of parole. Shut up, Duncan Idaho. You're funny. Anyway, in the end, all right, we've read that here. He avoided the death penalty as the jury wasn't unanimous on that. Well, see, now that's the interesting thing. This is a Florida case. Now, after the Peterson school shooting, now we have this situation in Florida where you only need 8 of the 12 jurors to sentence you to death. Isn't that weird that you need a unanimous verdict? You need a unanimous verdict to find you guilty, but only 8 of 12 have to find you worthy of the death penalty for them to kill you now. I find that somewhat disturbing. Anyway, I loved my jury, Donald said. All right. I loved my jury, Donald said in court during his sentence hearing. They paid close attention, but Your Honor, they were duped and you were duped. He was reading from a written statement and added, "My DNA in your house where a crime has been committed is real evidence. My DNA in my mother's house where I frequented all the time, Your Honor, that is not even real evidence." Oh, this is interesting. Donald then went on to blame his legal counsel for not allowing him to testify. Well, I don't think that's, if he would have insisted on testifying, his counsel would have had to have let him do it. So yeah, I'm not buying that his counsel did not allow him to testify. Whether or not to testify is his own damn choice. So yeah, that's not particularly persuasive there, Donald. So he went on to blame his legal counsel for not allowing him to testify and requested that the judge declare a mistrial. But his appeal was denied. Therefore, Donald Wayne Hartung Sr., 63, remains behind bars to this day, incarcerated at the Graceville Correctional Facility in Jackson County, Florida. Well, all right then. Huh. Let's see if we can get any new articles out of this. Oh. Apparently there was something about him on the Oxygen Channel. Pensacola Blue Moon homicide case highlighted in Oxygen show Family Massacre. Interesting. Ali 90211, I hope you're still sticking around. You're awesome. I was just joking. This was from 2022. Let's see what it says now. What set the case apart from others was that the whole family had been murdered in their home. It was personal because they had been killed with blunt force trauma and had stab wounds to the neck. And don't forget a bullet in the ear. Really, there's no new news. There's nothing really newer than 2 years ago. So I assume he's just rotting away in Florida somewhere. Yeah, it's like a lot of stuff after the trial, two or three stories since then. A couple stories about the Oxygen movie, the Oxygen TV movie. So I guess that's it. Huh. Well, there we go. That is the end of our second retro trial. We did O.J. Simpson for like a year and a half. That was, no spoilers for that one either. Nobody knows how that turned out. Hey, whoever called Ali a troll, apologize. Ali is not a troll. But Catherine is right. Stick around. We'll grow on you just like a moldy tree fungus. We'll grow on you. Don't know. Whoever called Ali a troll, apologize. Don't make me come in there. Flux, stop it. Don't make me come over there, people. Don't make me come over there. I missed OJ. You missed OJ for a year and a half. We got like 60 episodes of OJ. Go back and watch it. Apologize to Ollie. Anyway, as I was saying, that's the end of our little old retro Donald Hartung trial. We will be starting a new retro trial first free Thursday we get. It'll probably be is Chandler Halderson still a friend of the show? That's funny. Our next it'll probably be a week from next Thursday, because starting next Monday, Megan Fox and I are going to be revisiting and continuing our Judge Grudge Returns series in the Neighbor Wars. We're going to be doing part 4 on Monday of the Neighbor Wars. If you haven't seen parts 1, 2, and 3 yet, check them out. They're here they have their little playlist, I guess. Yes, don't make me turn this stream around, chat. I'm serious. So we'll probably the new trial will probably start a week from Thursday. Stay tuned to find out what that's going to be. But here's what's coming up in the near future. Tomorrow, Friday morning, we've got the heavy topic to discuss. Tomorrow's going to be it's going to be heavy and light. It's a double stream Friday. We are going to be doing Friday morning at the usual time, 9 a.m. Eastern. We will be doing we'll be reading through the Sarah Birchmore documents, and they are heavy. They are they're deep. We'll probably be looking at that over two separate streams. One this Friday and one probably a week or so later. I don't want to do too much of that in a row. That is too deep and heavy, because there's basically three documents to look at and a a press conference. We'll do the press conference, and there's the indictment, there's the motion to detain him, and the affidavit to support the motion to detain the police officer in the Sandra Birchmore case. So tomorrow we'll probably be doing the press conference and the affidavit in support of the motion for detention. Now, Ian, I saw Ian do a little bit of the he did the whole thing. I saw a little bit of it, I should say, of the press conference. He was upset, and I think he was a little misguided in his anger. I find myself in disagreement with Ian on a large part of his take on the press conference. So we'll talk a little bit about that as things go on. I think he wasn't fair, and I just didn't really agree with a lot of his take. But we can discuss it. That's the good thing. Where we can have disagreements, we can talk about them, and we can understand and respect each other's opinions. But I've got a slightly different one. So we'll do that tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the affidavit and the press conference. And that'll be Friday morning U.S. time. Friday night U.S. time will be the August F It Friday. For those of you that don't know what the F It Friday is, that's just where we say, yeah, F it. And we just turned it into a big old griftathon once a month. It was supposed to be last Friday, but cough, cough, YouTube had other plans for me last Friday, which was do nothing. So yeah, I couldn't do it last Friday. So I'm bringing up my Twitter feed here. It always catches me off guard when I first start my Twitter, and I just like the shit that is on my main page always kind of takes me a while to sort through. Let's see. Okay, where are we going? We're scrolling. Here we are. The guest list so far. Again, the whole idea behind the F It Friday is a pure griftathon. Every $100 that comes in on our newly revamped F It Friday stream, we spin the F It Friday fickle Ferris wheel of fate and fortune, where it's full of punishments, rewards, neutral things, and well, I guess we can read through the very nearly final list, which we created during the members only stream a couple of weeks ago. What we have on the fickle, we have 20 selections. We have 20 selections on the Ferris Wheel of Fate. And if we happen to go through all 20 of them, we'll reset the wheel and start again. There's a shot of whiskey. A shot of bad whiskey. Scotch, bourbon, gin, vodka, rum, soju, tequila, a spoonful of Marmite. And here's one of the punishments is a Korean quote unquote delicacy. Steamed silkworm larva. Ugh. I'll be eating steamed silkworm larva. Korean blood sausage. Korean steamed liver. A slice of pizza. Some delicious rice cakes. Ice cream. Real wasabi. A spoonful of real wasabi. Now, most people haven't actually had real wasabi. 95%. Of course, we all know that 2,433% of all quotes are made up, of all statistics are made up. But the vast number of people have never actually had real wasabi, because the vast majority of wasabi on the market is just regular old horseradish with green coloring added to it. Real wasabi is actually almost a gray color, and it's really expensive. So if you're getting like a tube of wasabi for 99 cents or $1.50, it's fake. Real wasabi is actually quite expensive. So we'll be doing a spoonful of real wasabi, some super spicy puldak ramen, some spicy chicken feet. Spicy chicken feet is on the menu. 10-second face lick by dogs, a $100 Temu shopping spree, orchestrated by chat and the panel guests. I have no say in the $100 Temu order, and those are some of the things that are on the fickle Ferris wheel of fate and fortune. That's what we've got coming up. So everybody, bring your shekels, bring your dollars, bring your euros, pounds, and dineros and everything for the F It Friday, where we have the panel, and the panel watches me do stuff. Here is the panel so far. These are the guests that have been invited and said they will show up. There's more people coming. Law of Self-Defense, Andrew Branca. Andrea Burkhart, potentially criminal Sean, Ari Jacob, Ozzy Overlord, Flux, MG Law, Waifu Kron Jess, Nick Starro, Paralegal Liz, Cat Not Williams, the T-Man, Kaiser Pineapple, Meme Copium, and perhaps many more. We'll play it by ear and see how it goes. But those are the people that have asked to be on so far and have said that they will be on so far. Sean's going to come. Don't worry about that. Sean's going to come. So, Yoda's stretching. So that's what's going to be happening Friday evening. And then, like I said, all next week, beginning on Monday, it's going to be the Megan Fox and I doing the Neighbor Wars, the return of Judge Grudge in another horrible case. Roland Arthur. This fake wasabi says horseradish on the package in small print, but I agree they should not call it wasabi. No, they should not. Wasabi is actually a completely different root than horseradish. Right, there we go. That's what's coming up on the next week. Guys, thank you so much for the very, very wonderful and awesome return to YouTube after a week forced vacation. Thank you so much for being here. Mods, it's good to have you back doing your modly duties. Chat, thank you so much for the support, the super chats, the monthly memberships, the everything else that came in, and thank you just for being here. Thank you, people. Thank you for keeping me entertained. Thank you for keeping yourselves entertained. Thank you for entertaining Ollie 90211. Spoiler. And we shall be back tomorrow morning with the very, very serious topic of Sarah Birchmore, who, spoiler alert for those of you who don't know I don't know how you don't know anything about the Sarah Birchmore. Maybe you've just been, because it's been on the on LawTube all day. But Sarah Birchmore was someone who was allegedly murdered by a police officer in, shock of all shocks, a town next to Canton, Massachusetts. And in fact, the officers that investigated it, Officer Lank from the Karen Reed trial was the first officer on scene. Keith Albert was also on the scene, and the guy who analyzed the cell phone data was the toolbox that was trying to sell his own application during the Karen Reed trial. The one that was trying to explain how the Haas longed to die in the cold. The search wasn't really done that night. It was done the next day because the tab times aren't the real times. That guy was the one that analyzed the phone data. So we have some of the some of the same characters from the Karen Reed trial, conducting the investigation into the Sandra Birchmore killing. Her death was initially ruled a suicide by the Massachusetts State Police, and then the FBI looked at it and said, we don't think so, and we're arresting the police officer for murder. So stand by for that tomorrow. Then Friday evening, like I said, F it Friday. Guys, thank you so much. Let's see where we can send you. I believe Andrea Burkhart might be streaming right now. If she is, we'll send you on over to Andrea Burkhart. Because yes, she is. Andrea Burkhart is streaming the live watch of the Idaho versus Brian Koberger. He's making a motion for a change of venue. He wants to have his trial taken somewhere else. And Andrea Burkhart is covering it live. So we're going to go over there. And while I'm doing that, while I'm saying it up, everybody, this is your last chance to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you have, as always, double check, please, to make sure you are still subscribed. Because whilst I was forcibly resting on my laurels, I lost about 20 subscribers, but oh, boo-hoo, that we'll get them back in en masse. But if you happen to be one of those 20 that was just unsubscribed, please just resubscribe. All right, we're going to customize this. Going to redirect. We are going to redirect to Andrea Burkhart. Saved. All right. All right, people, tell Andrea howdy. Legal Vices sent you on over there. And have a great day, people. Great evening, great night, whatever it is, wherever you are. Take care, and I will see you tomorrow. Until then, peace. And as they say in Canada, oot. I am the Lorax, the number one lawfluencer, bidding you a fond farewell.